Chapter 1697. Xiao Xianrui's heart trembled with fear. She urged all the spiritual energy in her body and poured it into the crescent moon. The crescent moon suddenly turned into a dark green crescent moon. Xiao Xianrui's snow-white hand drew a line. The dark green brilliance was like a lover's charming glance, extremely accurate and extremely fast, shooting towards the cultivator, who didn't have any magic weapon in his hand. Xiao Xianrui thought that even if this cultivator had a fireball more powerful than the best fireball talisman, this blade light would inevitably cut everything in front of it into two halves. That cultivator would absolutely not easily dodge it. Unfortunately, looking at the coldness in the cultivator's eyes, and then looking at the cultivator's expressionless face, Xiao Xianrui's little bit of confidence that had just been born wavered again. Sure enough, just as Xiao Xianrui urged her cultivation method, and tried her best to urge her spiritual energy, the cultivator suddenly stretched out his hand, and took out a huge black hammer from nowhere. Then as if it was light he smashed it forward, directly facing the crescent moon. Demon. Demon weapon. Xiao Xianrui was shocked and almost blurted out, "You are a disciple of the heavenly demon sect." Just as Xiao Xianrui exclaimed, the demonic hammer had already touched the light of the crescent moon. Clang, a loud sound rang out. This sound was both sharp and loud. The black head of the demonic hammer was not damaged at all, but the dazzling dark green brilliance just now was like glass shattering, turning into little fluorescent lights, scattering in the air. Sure enough, it's a demonic weapon. Xiao Xianrui's mouth had a trace of bitterness. She clearly knew the difference between her magic weapon and a real demonic weapon. "I'm afraid I'm going to die." Xiao Xianrui despaired. Her eyes looked at the demonic hammer that seemed to have encountered no resistance, and continued to rush towards her. Xiao Xianrui steeled her heart and waved the crescent moon again. Gotcha! The crescent moon was just a magic weapon, and it was a magic weapon of a refinement cultivator. How could Xiao Xianrui use her own body to attack the demonic weapon? With a crisp sound, the crescent moon suddenly shattered into several pieces. The fragments were like the broken shadow of the crescent moon in the rippling water, floating in the air. "Go to hell!" Xiao Xianrui heard the cultivator's ferocious roar, and the shadow of the demonic hammer in front of her grew larger and larger, covering her entire vision. An unparalleled force pressed down on her forehead, and within this force, there seemed to be a strange undulation. Mother, it was very strange. Under the shadow of death's shadow, Xiao Xianrui's first thought, but a vague image of a female cultivator that she had depicted countless times in her heart since childhood, but she had never succeeded in depicting a female cultivator's image. An unyielding, a kind of unwillingness spontaneously rose. Although this fluctuation was extremely faint and almost undetectable. What exactly was this fluctuation? Qi. The qi and qi instantly began to condense into qi. Alas, I'm finally going to build my foundation. What a pity. Xiao Xianrui's heart flashed with a trace of joy, but as soon as the joy appeared, Xiao Xianrui felt a chill on her forehead. The demonic hammer had already touched her shiny skin. It's too late. Xiao Xianrui suddenly seemed to have understood. She slowly closed her eyes. However, after a few seconds, the sharp pain didn't come, and the force on her forehead also disappeared. Xiao Xianrui opened her eyes in shock and saw the strange cultivator standing not far away with a smile on his face. His voice was also strange. "Fellow Taoist Xiao, do you want to use the spirit accumulation talisman? Or do you want to build your foundation now?" Ah? Xiao Xianrui didn't understand the situation for a while. This change was really too fast. The cultivator frowned and urged, "Fellow Taoist Xiao, don't you want to take the foundation establishment pill, or use the spirit accumulation talisman?" Spirit accumulation talisman? Xiao Xianrui was a little surprised. She quickly took out a foundation establishment pill from her storage bag, and opened her mouth to take it. "Wait!" The cultivator shouted. Xiao Xianrui was so scared that her hand trembled, and the foundation establishment pill almost fell out of the air. At this time, she already knew that the other party must be a foundation establishment senior, or maybe even a golden core senior. "Don't resist," the cultivator said gently. Then he waved his hand, and a shiny talisman flew out from his hand and slowly floated to Xiao Xianrui's forehead. Talisman? Xiao Xianrui saw this and was even more sure of her guess. However, she was still nervous. She really didn't understand why this senior, who didn't know whether he was a foundation establishment senior or a golden core senior, didn't let her build her foundation. When the talisman disappeared on Xiao Xianrui's forehead, Xiao Xianrui suddenly found that her condensed true qi had stopped condensing. Of course, the condensed true qi didn't melt back into true qi. This is Xiao Xianrui's face showed a trace of surprise. Poor child. The cultivator sighed. He waved his hand and a jade slip flew to Xiao Xianrui. He smiled and said, "Take a look. Yes, this junior knows." Xiao Xianrui took the jade slip and read it with her spiritual sense. Her face changed and she murmured, "There is such a talisman in the world? The peak of qi refining. It's really incredible." Then she immediately bowed and saluted. "This junior thanks senior for helping me. Please give me a name. This junior will never forget it." "Alas, forget it. It's just a name. Don't mention it." The cultivator waved his sleeve and said sadly, "Hurry back to Weeping Moon City. Don't let a third person know about what happened today." Xiao Xianrui was suspicious. She gritted her teeth and said, "Yes, this junior swears that I will never tell a third person. However, if senior doesn't give me a name, this junior will never return to the city." "What does it have to do with me whether you return or not?" The cultivator sneered. He turned around and flew far away in a flash. Senior Xiao Xianrui shouted. She also urged her spiritual power to chase after him. Unfortunately, her flying technique was not good. The true qi in her meridians had just condensed into true qi. How could she catch up with him? She only chased for 10 feet, but he had disappeared. Alas, which senior is this? Xiao Xianrui looked into the distance blankly and said to herself, "If he has a relationship with my 100 Herbs Gate, how could he be so cruel and merciless and kill so many of my disciples? Oh, could it be that he is friends with father?" Xiao Xianrui's heart suddenly jumped. But there is a cultivator with such a cultivation. I have never heard father mention him before. He can help people to build their foundation and give them the spiritual accumulation talisman. Such a powerful person. How could father know him? Xiao Xianrui had a myriad of thoughts in her mind. She then helplessly landed on a mountain peak and replenished the true qi in her meridians. Only then did she fly up and head towards Weeping Moon City. After Xiao Xianrui flew away, a slender figure appeared on the mountain peak. It was Xiaohua. "Senior sister, I'm sorry for destroying your magic weapon. If there is a chance in the future, I will give you a magic weapon." Looking gently at the place where Xiao Xianrui disappeared, Xiaohua said in a low voice, "Perhaps the next time we meet will be when I destroy the 100 Herbs Gate. At that time, senior sister won't have to bear the humiliation anymore." Then Xiaohua also flew up. However, he flew very slowly, as if he was escorting Xiao Xianrui back to the city. "Oh, by the way, Heavenly Demon Sect. What kind of sect is it? Is it a demonic cultivator?" Xiaohua thought doubtfully as he flew. Why did senior sister say that when she saw me take out the demonic weapon? With Xiaohua's escort, Xiao Xianrui naturally returned to Weeping Moon City safely. Xiaohua was still worried. When Xiao Xianrui entered the teleportation formation of Weeping Moon City, he waved his hand and stopped a spirit camel carriage to return to the inn. When Xiaohua returned to the inn, the full moon had already risen. Without waiting for him to enter the inn, Qian Diheng rushed out from the inn, grabbed Xiaohua's arm, and scolded. "Junior brother Xiaoyu, where did you go? Why didn't you say anything when you went out? The auction was about to start, but I didn't see you." Then, without waiting for Xiaohua's explanation, the three of them hurriedly got on the spirit camel carriage. Xiaohua got on the spirit camel carriage and scanned with his divine sense. He saw that there was no sign of Fan Yi among the waiters in the inn. He couldn't help but feel a little regretful. "I was thinking about covering my tracks and forgot. Fan Yi of this inn must have met Luan Jiaming of Luan's shop. How could they not tell me in advance? It's really troublesome." However, he immediately felt relieved. "Although my name has changed, it's understandable. Presumably they won't think too much about it. As for my appearance, I'm not a female cultivator. I'm afraid those men will only talk about senior sister and Jiang Yan. How is it possible for you to recall my appearance? Looking at Jiang Yan's attitude toward senior sister, I know how senior sister endured humiliation in 100 Herbs Gate. Alas, my cultivation isn't enough to deal with 100 Herbs Gate. And now there's also 100 Flowers Valley. Xiaohua clenched his teeth and thought again. Senior sister, when we meet again, it'll be the time when I save you from the fire pit. It'll also be the time when I destroy 100 Herbs Gate. Humph, if 100 Flowers Valley doesn't know what's good for them, I definitely won't be lenient. Senior sister, just bear with it for a few more years. Junior brother Xiao, where did you go? Sun Shu saw Xiaohua pondering and asked quietly. Xiaohua smiled and said, I didn't go anywhere. I just walked around Chiyu City and came across a refining shop. I bought some materials. Xiaohua took out some materials for Qian Diheng and the others to see. Hee, junior brother Xiao, you should put these things away. Qian Diheng was obviously not interested. Why did you buy these? Do you really want to make your own furnace? Although Swallow Thunder Ridge doesn't get along with Myriad Thunder Valley, refining magic tools is their responsibility. You only need to give them to Shocking Thunder Palace. You don't need to see them directly. I just thought it was interesting. It said that that place is cheap, so I thought about it. Alas, you can't delay business. Sun Shu said somewhat reproachfully. The auction has a time limit. If you're late, you won't be able to enter. Sorry, I know I was wrong. Xiaohua bowed. Chapter 1698. Listening to Sun Shu and Qian Diheng's complaints, Xiaohua could only smile bitterly. He just saw that he had plenty of time, so he went to Luan Ji's shop to buy some refining materials, preparing to refine it himself. He didn't think that it would take long. Who would have thought that he would meet Xiao Xianrui? He would not have thought that Xiao Xianrui was also at the peak of the 12th level of qi refining, and was looking for the opportunity to build her foundation. Naturally, for Xiao Xianrui's foundation building, Xiaohua would not regret not going to the auction. Not to mention that he tried to help Xiao Xianrui build her foundation, and succeeded in one strike. The joy of being able to help his former senior sister had already made him throw aside the resentment of Qian Diheng and Qian Diheng. The spirit camel carriage traveled for the time it took to burn a stick of incense, and stopped in front of a rather large building. At this time, the night was getting darker, and the whole building, except for a few lights, was completely submerged in the night. At first glance, it looked like a terrifying giant beast. Oh, I'm afraid it's too late. Sun Shu frowned, looking at the cold courtyard of the tall building, and whispered, It's too late. Sun Shu and Qian Diheng were chatting, and Kuan Fian, who had been silent all this time, suddenly said, The auction may not have what we want. Tomorrow, let's go to EG or the shop to have a look. Qian Diheng looked at Kuan Fian strangely and said, Everything in the shop is normal. If you want to find something good, you can only find it in the auction. Fellow Taoists, the auction has already begun. Please return to your seats. Wait for the next auction in a month. Before the four people walked to the door, a city guard came out from the dark door. Seeing the four people's cultivation he did not dare to neglect, and after bowing he said respectfully, Haha, fellow cultivator. Qian Diheng laughed, took a few steps forward, and affectionately held the other person's hand and said, I am a disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect, and I just came to Chiyu City. I have long admired the reputation of the auction in Chiyu City, so I hurriedly took the spirit camel carriage here. You see, didn't the spirit camel carriage just leave? Moreover, we are going to another place to gain experience tomorrow, so we need to participate in the auction. I'm afraid we won't be able to make it in a month. Fellow cultivator, please make an exception. With that said, Qian Diheng's other hand moved slightly, and a few spirit stones were quietly stuffed into the hands of the city guard. The city guard hesitated for a moment, then smiled and said, So you're a disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect. I have been disrespectful. Since they have come from afar, and are in urgent need of training, it would be unethical of me to stop them. Fortunately, although the four of you are late, the magic treasures for today's finale have yet to arrive. The four of you are really lucky. Please, As the guard spoke, he discreetly put away the spirit stone and moved to the side, leaving an empty space. Haha, thank you, fellow Taoist. Qian Diheng nodded with a smile. Without stopping, he hurried in. Xiaohua and the others also cupped their hands with a smile and followed in. Sun Shu walked past the city guard and said in a low voice, "A transcendent artifact actually appeared in the auction in Weeping Moon City? May I know what this magic treasure is?" When the city guard heard that, he was very proud and said with a smile, "Magic treasures often appear in our Weeping Moon City's auctions. Even the worst of them are high-grade magic tools. As for what kind of magic treasure will appear today, I also don't know. Fellow Taoists, please go inside and take a look." When the four of them entered, they found themselves in an extremely bright hall. This hall was not circular, but strangely polygonal. On each side of the hall, there were several small triangular doors. These small doors were overflowing with light, and there were also fluctuations of spiritual power. It was obvious that there was a restriction placed on them. "Seniors, please hurry up and follow this junior into the auction hall." Seeing someone come in, the several children standing in the hall were slightly stunned. Immediately, 4 children came out from the crowd, walked in front of the 4 people, and said respectfully. Xiaohua followed a little girl to a small triangular door in the hall. That little girl said respectfully, "Senior, if you go through this small door, you will find a temporary magic array. Inside the magic array, you can't use your magic power. Senior can change the maze inside. After you go out of the magic array, you will find a corridor about 10 feet long. After you go through the corridor, you will arrive at the auction hall. Senior, please hurry up. These small doors are about to close." Xiaohua slightly turned his head. Sun Shu and the other 2 were not far from him. They were all standing at a small door, so he nodded and said, "I know. Thank you for your guidance." After saying that, he cupped his hands and stepped through the small door. Just as Xiaohua and the others stepped through the small door, several cultivators who looked like city guards of Chiyu City surrounded a cultivator wearing a maze. They hurriedly came in from outside the door. Although they couldn't see the cultivation level of that cultivator, there was actually a middle-stage foundation establishment cultivator among these city guards. That cultivator was very respectful to this maze cultivator. Presumably, this cultivator's cultivation level wasn't lower than the foundation establishment realm. The several people entered from a small door in the corner of the hall. None of the children in the hall went up to greet them, and there wasn't a trace of surprise on their faces. At this time, Xiaohua had already put on the maze, but after leaving the restriction, he found that the corridor wasn't empty. Instead, there was a 7th-layer qi refining cultivator quietly waiting there. When he saw Xiaohua come out, he went up and said with a smile, "Senior, is this your first time participating in Chiyu City's auction?" Xiaohua nodded and said yes. The cultivator took out 3 things from his storage bag. One was a jade slip, one was a token, and the last one was a stick. He handed it over and said with a smile, "This token is the number that Senior used to participate in today's auction. It was randomly arranged and didn't follow any order. Moreover, the number is only revealed after Senior has read the jade slip and injected your magic power into it. As for this competition wood, it is used by Senior during the auction. It is a set with this token." "It's so complicated?" Xiaohua was slightly surprised, but then he was happy. Only such a complicated method could prove the completeness of Chiyu City's auction and ensure the safety of the bidding cultivators. Naturally, it could make the participating cultivators feel relieved. After receiving the 3 things, Xiaohua immersed his divine sense into the jade slip. He roughly understood that the incantation was very simple, but it could be used. While walking through the corridor, Xiaohua imprinted the incantation on the token according to the instructions. Number 422. There was a flash of brilliance on Xiaohua's token, but the number didn't flash on the token. Hee, as the jade slip said, only the holder of the token knows about this token. Others can't see it with their naked eyes or divine sense. More than 400 people. It's not much different from the number of cultivators participating in Yinyuan City's auction. Xiaohua thought to himself. He had already passed through the corridor. Xiaohua didn't have time to test the usage of the competition wood. He passed through the light screen at the end of the corridor and entered the auction hall. When he saw the situation inside the hall, he couldn't help but be stunned. Chapter 1699. What entered Xiaohua's eyes was a huge hall. In the middle of the hall was a transparent platform that was several feet high. The rest of the hall was filled with cultivators that were participating in the auction. It was a sea of black. Could it be that there were at least a few thousand people sitting there? Damn it! Why are there so many cultivators? Xiaohua almost blurted out. He thought about his 422 number. Sure enough, it was given casually and there was no order to it. Just like the auction in Yinyuan City, the cultivators in the hall were all sitting on jade chairs. Some of these cultivators were wearing camouflage robes, some were wearing ordinary robes, and some were wearing strange cloaks. Although it was different from the camouflage robes, it was impossible to see their faces. Unlike the auction in Yinyuan City, the chairs in the hall seemed to have restrictions. When Xiaohua scanned them with his divine sense was actually bounced off the chairs. He couldn't see the cultivation of the cultivators sitting on the chairs. Seeing that there was an empty chair not far away, Xiaohua slowly walked over. As he walked, he looked around to see if there were any traces of Sun Shu and the others. What made Xiaohua happy was that he didn't see anyone's shadow at all. It seemed that there were some illusion arrays in the hall. Great! Xiaohua was very satisfied. He immediately sat on the chair and looked at the auction wood in his hand. This competition would seem to be made of jade, but it was extremely cold to the touch. It was far from the usual warmth of jade. Xiaohua poured his magic power into the competition wood. The competition wood was suffused with a light green brilliance, and a kind of spiritual power fluctuation flew out. However, this spiritual power only flew out of the range of the jade chair, before disappearing into the space of the main hall. It didn't go far. Xiaohua knew that the auction hadn't started yet, so the auction wood couldn't be used. Simple numbers can be sent through the auction wood. Complex or other things can be sent through the auction wood. Not bad. Xiaohua lowered his head and carefully studied the auction wood's function. After all, it was his first time participating in the auction in Weeping Moon City, so he had to be careful. A short moment later, the light in the hall receded and a three-colored light screen appeared from the platform. It was like a school of fish swimming in the ocean as it danced around the hall. On the light screen, a mid-stage foundation establishment cultivator appeared. His figure gradually appeared on the platform like an image in a mirror. His figure would occasionally elongate and shrink as he gradually appeared on the platform. Fellow Taoist, the foundation establishment cultivator cupped his hands and said, "I am the host of this auction, Chang Fian. I am very happy that all of you are able to attend this auction on time. There are many things that all of you are looking forward to in this auction. I believe that all of you won't return empty-handed." Although Chang Fian was cupping his fists in a certain direction, every one of the cultivators within the hall could see that he was cupping his fists towards them. Additionally, Chang Fian's voice was faint. However, every one of the cultivators could hear him clearly. It was as though Chang Fian was whispering to them. After saying a few more words, Chang Fian clapped his hands and said with a smile, "Although I's words are pleasant to hear, they are still not as good as the items being auctioned. Everyone, I won't say any more. Let's begin the auction for today's first item." As he said that, he clapped his hands and a jade plate appeared out of thin air from a corner of the platform. The plate was covered with a brocade cloth, blocking everyone's sight and divine sense. Chang Fian waved his hand again, and the plate flew in front of him and stopped in midair. Chang Fian took off the brocade cloth, revealing 3 jade bottles on the jade plate. These are the Peiyuan pill, marrow cleansing pill, and vitality assimilation pill used by qi refining cultivators. The Peiyuan pill is a set of 10, starting at 15 high-grade spirit stones. The marrow cleansing pill is a set of 20, starting at 10 high-grade spirit stones. The vitality assimilation pill is a set of 3, also starting at 10 high-grade spirit stones. However, after Chang Fian finished speaking, no one bid. For a moment, the entire hall was silent. Why is that? Could it be that the price of these medicinal pills is too high? Xiaohua was somewhat baffled. However, at this moment, Chang Fian waved his big sleeve and a disc-like magic tool flew into the air. A white brilliance shot out from the disc and condensed into a light screen in mid-air. On the light screen, a string of words kept jumping. Xiao Hua's gaze swept over it, and understood that it was the number, and the number of spirit stones being auctioned. Sure enough, he heard Chang Fian say with a smile, "All right, the 97th cultivator has bid. If there are no higher bids, I'll rule that the 97th cultivator wins." Of course, above the light screen was the number, 97th. And another number. Xiao Hua thought for a moment. Magic power surged in his hand, and he waved the competition wood slightly. Sure enough, Chang Fian immediately said, "All right, fellow Taoist number 422 has bid. Haha, this fellow Taoist really has good eyesight." This bottle of medicinal pills was refined by a famous alchemist in the 100 Flowers Valley. Its medicinal power is far superior to other medicinal pills. As soon as Chang Fian finished speaking, many cultivators in the hall became restless. Not only did their voices rise and fall, but their hands were also not idle. They all began to wave the competition wood, and raise the price of the medicinal pills again and again. The senior really knows how to bid. He raised the price of the medicinal pills by a lot with just one sentence. Xiao Hua stopped after testing the effects of the competition wood, and sneered in his heart. Afterwards, there were also some medicinal pills for aura-refining cultivators, foundation-building cultivators, and even a few for golden core cultivators. All of them were won by unknown cultivators through bidding. All right, fellow Taoists, the ordinary medicinal pills are finished. Next are some medicinal pills with special effects. Chang Fian mysteriously smiled. He pointed at the jade bottle and said, "This is the revolving illumination pill. It is refined from the rainbow cloud." There is no need for this poor Taoist to explain. Everyone already knows that this is a supreme item that can stimulate divine sense. This revolving illumination pill, as well as other medicinal pills with special effects, has no starting price. Fellow Taoists, please start bidding. Revolving illumination pill. Not to mention the others, even Xiao Hua was surprised. The rainbow cloud was not easy to find. Every time a rainbow cloud appeared, it was accompanied by the life of a cultivator. Although Xiao Hua's space was mystical, it only had one rainbow cloud. However, Xiao Hua himself was also puzzled. He didn't understand why after he picked the rainbow cloud, he was able to produce a second one. There were many cultivators bidding for the revolving illumination pill. Xiao Hua saw many cultivators around him repeatedly waving their hands. Finally, the price of the revolving illumination pill was raised to 20 top-grade spirit stones. It was actually twice the price of an ordinary foundation establishment pill. Damn, they're crazy. Xiao Hua curled his lips. But thinking about the powerful effects of divine sense, he felt that it was normal. After all, foundation establishment pills were easy to refine, but rainbow clouds were not common. Afterwards, special medicinal pills such as embryonic breathing pill, illumination pill, Elaine pill, and essence flower pill appeared one by one. Each medicinal pill caused a sensation. When essence flower pill appeared, Xiao Hua madly bid several times. But in the end he couldn't resist the impulse of others. He sighed and gave up. After all, young master's situation is different from others. 1 or 2 medicinal pills may not be enough. If I only bid for the essence flower pill, I'm afraid I'm neglecting the essentials. Let's look at the spirit grass used to refine the essence flower pill. Xiao Hua helplessly thought. Moreover, unlike other medicinal pills, the final bidding price of the Elaine pill, which was hard to find elsewhere, was not too high. Presumably, it was because the Elaine green fruit and other medicinal pills were commonly seen in Weeping Moon City, so Xiao Hua also had the idea of bidding for the spirit grass. Xiao Hua's space had many spirit grasses. They were all carefully collected and planted by Xiao Hua, so they could be considered complete. But human strength couldn't compare to heavenly strength. On the Xiaoyu continent, there were countless types of spirit grasses. How could Xiao Hua collect them all? Bright flower fruit, essence returning grass, Elaine green fruit, and danhe, these 4 spirit grasses, Xiao Hua's space didn't have them. Moreover, Xiao Hua still had a problem, and that was the bright flower pill's pill recipe. Although Xiaohua had obtained Zhenxia's jade slip, and there were some pill recipes in it, these pill recipes were all common. Bright flower pill and other special pill recipes were still rare. Although Xiaohua could gather the spirit grasses and spirit fruits, if he wanted to refine the bright flower pill, he would have to think of another way. After that, there were some rare medicinal pills. Some could increase divine sense, some could improve the quality of the condensed core, some could refine the body. Every medicinal pill had a high price. Xiaohua had heard of these medicinal pills before, but he didn't expect that he would come across them right after he came out for training. Unfortunately, although he had spirit stones in his space, they didn't seem to be of any use to him. He could only listen to Changfian's words on the stage. Xiaohua didn't have any thoughts of bidding. Alright, the bidding for the medicinal pills is over. Now, let's start the bidding for the spirit grasses and spirit fruits. Changfian finally shouted. Xiaohua immediately focused. As usual, the first round of the auction for the spirit grasses is my Weeping Moon City specialty, the Elian green fruit. Changfian clapped his hands, and a young female cultivator walked out from the corner. This female cultivator used a strange head ornament to cover her face, making it impossible to see her true appearance. She wore very little, and only a few important parts were covered. The rest of her tender skin was exposed, and under the resplendent brilliance, it revealed a kind of enchanting luster. Xiaohua's eyes swept over her, and a wave of heat gushed out from the bottom of his heart. Damn it! Xiaohua immediately recited the exquisite leaf scripture. A faint flow of energy flowed out from the Buddha's sarira. Although it was like a faint autumn wind, it blew away all the beautiful thoughts in Xiaohua's heart. Should I bid for the spirit grasses? Or should I bid for the body? Xiaohua cried out in his heart. He looked around. Obviously, the entire atmosphere in the hall was ignited by this female cultivator in an instant. There was a somewhat excited atmosphere. Fellow Taoists, I believe everyone knows that the specialty of Weeping Moon City is the Elian green fruit. However, the quality and age of the Elian green fruit are different. If the difference is too big, then the effects of the clear flower pill and the Elian pill will also be different. As for the Elian green fruit in this auction in my Weeping Moon City, let's not talk about the age. As for the quality, everyone, please take a look. The 100 stalks of Elian green fruit in this female cultivator's storage bag were cultivated by this female cultivator, using my Weeping Moon City's secret method. The quality is definitely the best. Chapter 1700. Using primordial yin to cultivate it? Xiaohua was stunned and thought to himself. It seems that I haven't seen any records that mention such benefits. I believe that some of you are here for the first time in my Weeping Moon City. I still have to explain. Changfian continued naturally, as if he had said this countless times. The refinement of pills requires the balance of yin and yang. The bright flower fruit is yang while the Elian green fruit is yin. Because of the power of heaven and earth, my Weeping Moon City is a place where yang energy gathers. The yin energy of heaven and earth has nowhere to go. Therefore, the yin spirit herbs produced here are famous in the entire Xiaoyu continent. The Elian green fruit cultivated with female primordial yin has an even deeper yin energy. It is extremely rare in Weeping Moon City. If it is refined into the bright flower pill, its effect will be 30% stronger than normal pills. The starting price of these 100 Elian green fruits is 20 high-grade spirit stones. Why is it so cheap? This is bad. When Xiaohua heard that the Elian green fruit cultivated with female primordial yin had so many benefits and the starting price was so low, he couldn't help but feel bad. He thought that there would be many people bidding for it. Who knew that after a while, the light screen was still silent and no words appeared. Cough cough, Changfian coughed a few times and smiled. I know that the age of the Elian green fruit is a bit young. But if you buy it and choose a suitable place to cultivate it, fellow Chang, let's forget about it. I'm afraid there aren't any cultivators from the 100 Flower Valley, Mo Ling sect, or Grass Spirit sect here today. No one is interested in your Elian green fruit. Fellow Taoist, please bring out your aged spirit herbs. Finally, a slightly boorish voice rang out. reverberating through the silent hall. Hee hee, that's right, that's right. Everyone also shouted. Sigh, all right. Chang Fian seemed to feel that it was like casting pearls before swine. He shook his head slightly, and was about to put away the jade box with a wave of his sleeve. Great! Xiao Hua was overjoyed in his heart. He understood that these spirit grasses that were not very old were of little value to ordinary cultivators. The base price of 120-year-old spirit grasses was 20 high-grade spirit stones, and each of them was 20 medium-grade spirit stones. This price was absolutely not low. Only sects like 100 Herb sect that specialized in growing spirit herbs would pay attention to it, and pay such a high price. But these sects really didn't come today. Without hesitation, Xiao Hua waved the wooden stick in his hand, and a line of words appeared on the screen. Number 422, 20 pieces. Haha, the 100 Flowers Valley is here. I wasted my breath. The cultivator's voice rang out again. Well, there's finally an expert who knows what's what. Chang Fian smiled again and said, Fellow Taoist number 422 has given the starting price. Are there any other Taoists who want to bid? If you wanted to bid, you would have done so long ago. Xiao Hua muttered. Sure enough, after a few mutters, no one responded. The 100 stalks of Elysian lotus azure fruits in the bag of holding belonged to Xiao Hua. However, Xiao Hua also noticed that the auction in the Weeping Moon City was different from that in the Yinyan City. All the items that were auctioned would not be delivered to the cultivators at the time of the auction. Presumably, the items would only be delivered to the cultivators after the auction. Hee hee, what if I don't have enough spirit stones and scare them into bidding? What if I can't take out enough spirit stones and sneak away? Xiao Hua thought maliciously. Following that, a few more spirit herbs, just like the Elysian lotus azure fruits, were brought up by different female cultivators. They were not very old, but their origins were not ordinary. Presumably, these items would have a good selling point in the previous auctions, so they became the norm. The asking price was not low, but today, they all benefited Xiao Hua. In the end, a few people laughed and said, Fellow Taoist Chang, I'm afraid there's no need to bid for these routine spirit herbs. Let fellow Taoist number 422 take them. It's not very appropriate to waste our time for no reason. Haha, I also think so. Chang Fian did not expect that today's situation would be like this. His face was slightly embarrassed. While he was cursing inwardly, he rolled his eyes and said with a smile, If fellow Taoist number 422 agrees, I will make the decision to bid for all the low-level spirit herbs to fellow Taoist number 422. Furthermore, I will give fellow Taoist number 422 a 5% discount. Xiao Hua laughed loudly in his belly. Without the slightest hesitation, he once again agreed via voice transmission. Ha ha. Fellow Taoist number 422 is really funny. Seeing a line of small words on the light screen. Fellow Taoist number 422 agrees. Chang Fian and the other cultivators in the hall all laughed loudly. Alright, since fellow Taoist number 422 is so supportive, I can't go back on my words. Chang Fian clapped his hands and said with a smile, For this auction, the Sobbing Moon City has prepared 440 types of spiritual herbs. Other than the 5 spiritual herbs that fellow Taoist number 422 bid for, there are still 435 types of spiritual herbs left. They will be priced at 8,700 upper-grade spiritual stones. I will remove 10% of the spiritual stones and fellow Taoist number 422 can bid for these spiritual herbs with 8 supreme-grade spiritual stones. As he said that, he pointed his hand. On the light screen, lines of words flowed and the 435 types of spirit herbs were slowly displayed. Bright flower fruit, origin returning herb, Mu-Ning herb, Chi-Chi-Mu. Some of the cultivators who were bored actually read out the names one by one, at the same time. Many cultivators roared with laughter. Although there were a lot of spirit herbs and they could be considered rare, their age was written next to them. Some were 10 years old, some were 20 years old, and the oldest was 30 years old. These were probably not enough to be refined into pills, or they could not be refined into pills of high quality. I.O. pill closing. Among the lines of words, a sharp-eyed cultivator immediately exclaimed, Fellow Taoist Chang, Why is there a pill closing among these low-grade spirit herbs? This pill closing is the item that I want to bid for. No, I want to bid for it. Hee fellow Taoist, this pill closing is naturally a low-grade spirit herb that is extremely young, right? Can't you see? Chang Fian's eyes flashed with craftiness. He pointed his hand and the words on the light screen stopped. After the words pill closing, there were words 5 years 10 spirit herbs. But the problem is, this pill closing is not limited to its age. It only needs 5 years of pill closing to refine bright flower pills. The other cultivators also shouted. Moreover, this pill closing is extremely rare. Weeping Moon City is taking out 10 pill closing at once. Each pill closing should be worth at least half a top-grade spirit stone, right? Why are they giving it to Cultivator 422 just like that? That's right. No, this is not fair. This pill closing is a separate auction, everyone shouted. Cough cough. Chang Fian coughed and sneered. I represent Weeping Moon City. How can the words of Weeping Moon City not count? Fellow Taoists, I gave you this opportunity. Since you don't want it, how can you blame I for being unfair? Chapter 1701. When the majority of the cultivators heard this, they were somewhat dissatisfied. However, when they thought about it carefully, the situation was indeed the same. Chang Fian had originally bid for the items one by one. However, someone in the auction house thought that it was too slow. Thus, they urged him to speed up. Chang Fian also agreed without hesitation. Number 422 didn't hesitate, and took out 8 top-grade spirit stones without hesitation. Now that they were tracing back and asking people to relent, there were naturally people who wanted to make things difficult for Chang Fian. But how can there be 450 types of spiritual herbs in a single auction? At the same time, there were many people who were surprised and muttered. And as usual, he should be bidding alone. However, when Chang Fian's cold gaze swept over them, the whole place became calm again, and no one said a word. All right, Chang Fian was very satisfied with the effect of his gaze. Suddenly, he clapped his hands and said with a smile, fellow cultivators, don't be afraid. For this auction, my Sobbing Moon City has prepared many spiritual herbs. Soon, there will be a 400-year-old Elian green fruit, and the starting price will be 1 top-grade spirit stone. All right, I will add 5 mid-grade spirit stones before Chang Fian finished speaking, a cultivator shouted. Haha. The others laughed again, because when this cultivator spoke, a few words had already jumped on the light screen. Number 105 had already raised the price to 1 top-grade spirit stone, and 20 mid-grade spirit stones. Damn it. That cultivator touched his head and did not say anything else. He hurriedly activated his magic power and waved the wood. Seeing that the Elian green fruit was quickly sold for 2.5 high-grade spirit stones, Xiaohua felt a burst of joy in his heart. To me, 30 years and 300 years are really negligible. With only 8 top-grade spirit stones, I was able to bid for so many spiritual herbs. I didn't come to the auction in vain. Next, there were Elian green fruits of different ages, and finally, there was a 1,300-year-old Elian green fruit. This completely caused the entire auction to boil over. After several rounds of bidding, the words on the light screen changed rapidly, and in the end, it was actually sold at the price of 2 top-grade spirit stones. Although Xiaohua had already participated in the auction, he was still somewhat flabbergasted as he watched the numbers on the hologram gradually increase. He thought to himself, it seems that when it comes to the auction, these spirit stones are no longer considered spirit stones. This is a top-grade spirit stone. In the normal market, a 2,000-year-old spiritual herb is only worth 1 top-grade spirit stone. But in the auction, it seems like it's worth twice the price. It seems that I still don't have enough spirit stones in my space. Xiaohua unconsciously thought of the finale of the auction. I wonder how many spirit stones that treasure is worth. After that, there were some spirit grasses. Most of these spirit grasses didn't exist in Xiaohua's space, but from their names, most of them were included in the spirit grasses that Xiaohua had just bid for. Without exception, these spirit grasses were all sold for extremely high prices. Well, if the last treasure is exchanged with a 10,000-year-old spiritual herb, I don't know if it's possible. Xiao Hua's heart was rekindled with hope. After the auction of spiritual herbs, it was the materials for refining tools. There were also many rare and strange things, such as half a drop of Qingfu blood, which was said to be used to practice some kind of mysterious cultivation method, several pieces of spiritual wood, which was said to be used to refine flying swords, and a bottle of heavenly thunder accumulation liquid, which was said to be necessary to refine a thunder attribute magic weapon. These things might not be available in the Weeping Moon City, so the things to be exchanged were also strange, many of which Xiao Hua had never heard of. Just when Xiao Hua was secretly shaking his head and thinking about how to get the spiritual herbs in the auction, he heard Chang Fian's clear voice. These are 2 pieces of gold foil that a fellow Taoist entrusted to me in the Weeping Moon City. I don't know the purpose of these 2 pieces of gold foil. Xiao Hua was startled and hurriedly looked up. Sure enough, the 2 pieces of gold foil floating in front of Chang Fian looked exactly the same as the gold foil that recorded the exquisite leaf scripture. I don't know the material and purpose of this gold foil. The fellow Taoist who entrusted it also doesn't know. But I believe that this thing is of great use. Chang Fian said very mysteriously. This fellow Taoist doesn't want spiritual stones or spiritual herbs. He only wants Qianmo stone. No matter how big or small it is, it can be exchanged. Qianmo stone? When Xiao Hua heard this, he felt both disappointed and uneasy. This gold leaf was related to the Buddha Sarira that he cultivated, so he had to gather all of it. Now that his luck was good, how could he not take it when he encountered it in the second auction? He was willing to exchange the 10,000-year-old spiritual herb, but the other party only wanted the Qianmo stone. Xiao Hua also knew about the Qianmo stone. It was something similar to the Dan He. When refining tools, one only needed to add a little bit of it. And no matter if it was a magic tool or magic weapon, it would be 2 times harder than when it was not used. It was not rare to say that it was rare, but the problem was that Xiao Hua had never seen it before, let alone have it. Could it be that I'm just going to watch it be exchanged by someone else? Xiao Hua was a bit anxious, but the situation was out of Xiao Hua's expectations. That Chang Fian shouted a few times, but just like the Yilian green fruit, no one answered. Xiao Hua was overjoyed. His eyes turned a few times, and he activated the auction wood. On the light screen immediately appeared. Number 422, a piece of top-grade spiritual stone, or a 10,000-year-old spiritual herb. Haha, this fellow Taoist is probably a cultivator from 100 Flower Valley or Grass Spirit Sect. When a cultivator saw this, he laughed and said, "Who would exchange spiritual herbs for some gold foil of unknown use?" Chang Fian looked at it, then pointed his hand. Xiao Hua's line of text immediately disappeared. He said, "That fellow Taoist said very clearly, he only wants the Qianmo stone and nothing else." Fellow Taoist Chang. A low voice sounded. "I have the Qianmo stone, but I don't want this gold foil. I want to exchange it for a 10,000-year-old Yilian grass. I don't know." Chang Fian shook his head slightly, and said with a smile, "I can't do anything about this. If fellow Taoist is willing, you can reveal your identity, then use the Qianmo stone to exchange for these 2 gold foils. After that, you can exchange it with fellow Taoist number 422 outside. Or you can ask fellow Taoist number 422 to reveal his identity, and you can go find him." Naturally, that voice stopped, and did not say another word. Xiao Hua also sighed. Even though the gold foil was important, but if he revealed his identity, then the 10,000-year-old Yilian grass would not be easy to explain. Sun Shu, Qian Diheng, and Kuan Fian were all present. Damn it! Xiao Hua suddenly stood up, and pulled down the maze on his body, revealing a pale face with thick eyebrows and big eyes. He said clearly, "I Jiangmo happen to have a 10,000-year-old Yilian grass on me. If fellow Taoist is willing, you can exchange these gold foils. I will respectfully wait for fellow Taoist outside." Seeing Xiao Hua reveal his identity, the people present whispered to each other. A 10,000-year-old Yilian grass. That was a spiritual grass needed by late-stage foundation establishment cultivators. He actually used it to exchange for the Qianmo stone. Could it be that these 2 gold foils had some secret? But what made Xiaohua disappointed was that the cultivator who spoke just now did not speak again, and he also could not figure out who it was. Looking at the eyes of the surrounding people looking at him, Xiaohua felt rather ashamed and angry in his heart, as if he had been played by that person. "All right, fellow Taoist Jiang, please sit down." Chang Fian waved his hand and said, 9 out of 10 things in this world do not go as you wish. Even though these gold foils are something you must obtain, you do not have the Qianmo stone, and this fellow Taoist obviously has his misgivings. It's better to ask fellow Taoist Jiang to find another opportunity in the future. As he said that, he waved his hand, and the 2 gold foils landed on an empty plate in midair, falling into a corner and disappearing. Sai Xiaohua sighed and sat down, simply not wearing his camouflage robe anymore. Immediately after, Chang Fian took out many more items, bidding one by one. Xiaohua lost interest, only watching indifferently. In the end, after bidding for several mystic tools, Chang Fian waved his hand and said with a smile, "The finale of this auction is a special item." "Fellow Taoist Chang, isn't it a magic weapon?" An impatient cultivator already shouted. "Hee, this item is not a magic weapon, but it's better than a magic weapon." Chang Fian smiled and clapped his hand. A similarly charming female cultivator with her face covered, holding a jade plate in her hand, walked up to the high platform. When the female cultivator walked in front of Chang Fian under everyone's anxious mood, Chang Fian took the jade plate and said with a smile, "I wonder if fellow Taoists have guessed what it is?" Seeing Chang Fian showing off, everyone shook their heads. There were indeed too many strange things in Xiaoyu continent. Who could know what was under this brocade? "Hee, everyone, please take a look." Chang Fian waved his hand and the brocade floated up. On the jade plate, there was a small, clear, azure sword quietly lying on it. It looked extremely ordinary. A flying sword? Seeing this item, some cultivators revealed expressions of joy while others frowned. "Not bad, fellow Taoists are indeed considerate. This is a flying sword." Chang Fian waved his hand and the azure flying sword flew into his hand. He looked at the small sword in his hand with pity and waved his hand. The flying sword flew into the air and freely swam around the high platform. "This is a real flying sword, something that sword cultivators use." Chang Fian used the art of controlling objects for a moment and said with satisfaction, "Although I don't know the art of flying swords, I can sense the sharpness and spirituality of this flying sword just by using the Dharma instruments method to activate it. If any fellow Taoist is proficient in flying sword techniques and lacks a flying sword, wouldn't this spirituality of a flying sword be even better than a magic treasure?" A spirituality of a flying sword. Xiaohua's heart jumped, and he immediately understood what Chang Fian meant. This flying sword clearly had a sword spirit. It was many times stronger than his dream execution. How many spirit stones would this cost? Xiaohua frowned and began to calculate how he could bid for this flying sword. "Fellow Taoist Chang, a sword cultivator's flying sword is connected to the sword cultivator's life. If the previous owner of this flying sword did not die, it would not be easy to refine, right? Fellow Taoist Chang, I heard that 2 sword cultivators from Huan country went missing in Ming country. Could this flying sword be related to those 2 sword cultivators?" Fellow Taoist Chang, a group of cultivators began to ask. Chapter 1702. Fellow Taoists. Chang Fian clapped his hands and said in a clear voice, "Although flying swords are rarely seen in my Tao sect's auction, it's not like they have never been seen before. Of course, with Ai's experience, this is also the first time I've seen a flying sword of such high quality. Therefore, when my Sobbing Moon City said that we have something comparable to a magic weapon for auction, I've indeed caused you to misunderstand." Fellow Taoist Chang. There was still someone who said loudly, "All magic tools and magic treasures either have a common refining method, or a special refining method is provided during the bidding. This flying sword is certainly good, but I'm afraid we don't have a sword cultivator's magic formula." Chang Fian was somewhat unhappy that he was interrupted, but he still narrowed his eyes and said, "Fellow Taoist, please rest assured. I haven't finished speaking yet. This flying sword has already been restricted by a secret method, and there is a corresponding refining jade slip. Great! Xiaohua's mouth revealed a slight smile. This flying sword was simply tailor-made for him. I just don't know how to bid. Xiaohua's heartbeat quickened. Sure enough, someone shouted. Fellow Taoist Chang, what's the starting price of this flying sword? Hurry up and report it. We can't wait any longer. Haha, everyone, please wait a moment. As Chang Fian spoke, he stretched out his hand and was about to point at the light screen. However, at this moment, Chang Fian suddenly felt the spiritual qi of heaven and earth in front of him move slightly. At the same time, the flying sword that had stopped in front of him suddenly straightened its sword head. As if it had intelligence, it swayed slightly and suddenly flew towards the crowd of cultivators in front of him. Chang Fian was slightly surprised, but his expression didn't seem to be too surprised. Chang Fian pointed his finger, and the flying sword stopped in midair like a small snake that had its weak point pointed. However, this pause only lasted for a moment. Suddenly, the flying sword more than doubled in size. With a schwa sound, it turned into a green rainbow, and was about to fly into the crowd of cultivators. Just as the flying sword was about to cross the range of the high platform, there was a burst of light and a finger-wide yellow light screen blocked the flying sword. The flying sword was blocked by the flickering light of the light screen, and the intelligence of the flying sword seemed to be sucked away. With a clang sound, the flying sword fell onto the high platform. Humph! A bunch of hypocrites! Suddenly, a shout came from the crowd of cultivators. Shortly after, a school of light that looked like a school of fish rose up from the shout and charged toward the light barrier. There was a burst of crackling sounds. The restriction on the platform was clearly no match for the light from the fish and was shattered. Shortly after, another ray of rainbow shot out from where the fish flew out and landed on the green flying sword. The green flying sword seemed like it was being held by a hand, and was about to leave the platform as the rainbow shrank. Flying sword. Xiaohua's eyes were sharp, and he had also practiced with flying swords. With a glance, he could tell that these two strange and sharp lights were two flying swords. Chang Fian's eyes flashed with a hint of gloominess. He formed a series of hand seals and struck at the two flying swords. However, all the hand seals were useless. It seemed that they could not prevent the flying swords from being taken away. However, Chang Fian did not look nervous at all. Where did this madman come from? A light snort came from the top of the high platform. Immediately, a green full moon-shaped ball of light flashed from where the sound came from. The ball of light streaked across the high platform and smashed into the rainbow sword. There was a crisp paw sound, followed by a sword cry from Ningguang. The rainbow sword seemed to be in pain and cried out sadly. The green flying sword naturally fell again. Go! 2 people flew out from the crowd of cultivators. These 2 people had already torn off their camouflage clothing, revealing the foreign sword cultivator attire. They were Duan Yuming and Wang Xuyao, who came to the 3 cultivation countries to find Zhang Yutong and Zhang Yuha. When Duan Yuming saw that Wang Xuyao's rainbow sword was hit, he was not nervous at all. He chanted a mantra and the swimming fish sword flew out. One of them hit the green ball of light, and the other went to catch the green flying sword. Ignorant child. With a sneer, the green ball of light flickered and suddenly exploded. In the space of 1 zhang above the high platform, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was torn apart. Wang Xuyao's rainbow sword shook violently. Then it turned into a rainbow and returned to Wang Xuyao's side. With a spin, it protected Wang Xuyao within the rainbow. Duan Yuming's swimming fish sword was even more miserable. Both of the fishes were blown away. It was extremely chaotic. Even the fishes that were transformed from the sword light suddenly disappeared, leaving only empty outlines. Duan Yuming, who was flying in the air, paled. He knew that he had encountered an expert. He activated the sword energy in his body and slowly withdrew his swimming fish sword. He then bowed and said, "I wonder which senior from the Weeping Moon City has come?" From the time the 2 sword cultivators from the Xian sword sect attacked to the expert from the Weeping Moon City stopping them, only a few breaths of time had passed. In the auction, the cultivators' cultivation levels were uneven. Many of the qi refining cultivators did not even have time to react before everything was over. Although the exploding ball of light was extremely powerful, its power was controlled within 1 zhang. Even under the ball of light, the 10 cultivators on the side of the high platform did not even have a single strand of hair on their heads. Of course, among these 10 cultivators, there were 2 low-level Qi refining cultivators. Although they were wearing camouflage robes, their faces were already pale. They thought that they had just walked through the gates of hell. Senior. Seeing that the 2 sword cultivators from the Xian sword sect had such a high cultivation level, they were afraid that they were already in the golden core stage. Naturally, the cultivators who called them seniors were also in the nascent soul stage. Many of the cultivators who had regained their senses during the auction thought, could it be Fairy Chiyue? However, Changfian was unusually respectful. He bowed towards the high platform and said, Junior greets Elder Hua. Elder Hua? A cultivator beside Xiao Hua whispered. Elder Hua Jinyu? It's actually not Fairy Chiyue. Humph. Elder Hua is already in the late stage of the golden core stage. It's more than enough to deal with these 2 sword cultivators. How could the Chiyue city lord appear? It was probably because the restrictions on the high platform were damaged. The restrictions on the seats during the auction were also damaged. Everyone's whispers could be heard clearly now. Seeing an old woman in green slowly stepping down from the high platform, Duan Yuming's eyes flickered. He bowed and said, Junior Duan Yuming greets Elder Hua of the Chiyue city. Although Hua Jinyu did not release her qi, her aura was oppressive. With Xiao Hua's cultivation level, he could not see her cultivation level for the time being. However, the late stage of the golden core stage was even more powerful than Zhen Qing. Xiao Hua could not help but respect her. You are sword cultivators from the Huan country. You came to my Chiyue city to participate in the auction. Why did you break my rules? Although you are guests from afar, I still have to warn you. Hua Jinyu landed from the sky and looked at Duan Yuming and Wang Shuyao expressionlessly. Chapter 1703. I'm Duan Yuming. This is my junior sister Wang Shuyao. Duan Yuming bowed and said, I was reckless just now, please forgive me, Senior Hua. Hua Jinyu's eyes flickered. She did not expect the 2 sword cultivators to be so humble. She nodded slightly and said, Yes, I'm the elder of Chiyue City, Hua Jinyu. Although the realm of sword cultivators is different from that of Dao sect, your cultivation is similar to that of Dao sect's middle golden core stage. You don't have to call me senior, just call me fellow cultivator. Thank you, fellow cultivator Hua. Duan Yuming understood that Hua Jinyu's cultivation level was very high. He already knew that Hua Jinyu had reached the Aurous Core realm when he tried to probe Hua Jinyu. Once he broke through the bottleneck, he would be a nascent soul senior. Alright, since both of you know your mistake, Chiyue City has always been hospitable. You just have to follow the rules of the auction. I'll pretend that I didn't see anything that happened just now. Hua Jinyu nodded and said, Do you think it's that easy? Xiao Hua, who was at the back of the crowd, narrowed his eyes. He had already thought about the cause and effect, and said coldly in his heart. Sure enough, Duan Yuming laughed and said, We naturally want to follow the rules of Chiyue City, but we also want to follow the rules of the 3 cultivation kingdoms. But there's nothing we can do. Someone tried to kill my sword cultivator, so I have to violate the rules of Chiyue City. What do you mean by that? Hua Jinyu sneered. I know that you've been looking for 2 sword cultivators for many years without any results. Are you suspecting that these 2 sword cultivators are from Chiyue City? Wang Shuyao also said coldly, We didn't say that. If fellow cultivator Hua admits it yourself, we can also think so. Junior sister. Duan Yuming scolded. If Chiyue City did it, would fellow cultivator Hua treat us so kindly? They dare. Wang Shuyao glanced at them and said coldly, Why wouldn't I dare? The moment Hua Jinyu released his pressure, it was as if a mountain was pressing down on them. Wang Shuyao and Duan Yuming's expressions changed instantly. After their bodies sank down by 3 feet, there was the sound of swords ringing around their bodies. The flying swords circled around the 2 of them rapidly. The sword ray shot out fiercely, and actually managed to resist the pressure of a late-stage Aurous Core. Although Hua Jinyu controlled his aura very well, all the cultivators present could still feel it. Even Xiao Hua, who was the last, felt an incomparable fear from the bottom of his heart. It was like an irresistible pressure. When Xiao Hua saw Wang Xuyao and Duan Yiming's methods of dealing with them, his eyes unconsciously lit up. His current strength was roughly at the early stage of Foundation establishment, but if he were to fight with a Foundation establishment cultivator, he would be lacking in coercion. And this coercion was very annoying. Without the realm of Foundation establishment, it simply wouldn't be produced. If he could use his flying sword to resist the coercion of a Foundation establishment cultivator, he wouldn't need to reveal his mighty Vajradharma body. This would be an excellent method. But right after, Xiao Hua frowned slightly again, and said to himself, using the flying sword to resist the pressure, it's probably because of the sword spirit within the flying sword. This young master's flying sword doesn't have a sword spirit, so how can it be used? It's better to find an opportunity to try it out. Fellow Taoist Hua, don't be anxious. I have something to say. Duan Yiming saw that Hua Jianyu's coercion was blocked. He raised his head and shouted. Humph. Hua Jianyu snorted coldly and retracted his coercion. Fellow Taoist Hua, don't you think that my actions have something to do with this flying sword? Duan Yiming glanced at the flying sword in Chang Fian's hand and said, this flying sword is one of the 2 missing sword cultivators of my Xian sword sect. Zhang Yutong's flying sword, green spirit. Is it? Hua Jianyu glanced at Duan Yiming, and with a wave of her hand, the green spirit flying sword flew into her hand. She looked at it for a while and said, this flying sword's material is indeed extraordinary. It's different from ordinary flying swords. But if you say that this is Zhang Yutong's flying sword, I will need you to show evidence. This green spirit flying sword was nurtured by my Xian sword sect's secret technique. Although I can't completely control the sword, I can still use my sect's secret technique to drive the sword. Wang Xuyao said. The fact that I was able to take down this sword is the evidence. Is that so? Hua Jinyu smiled. Then, she clasped her hands together, and the green spirit flying sword in her hand flickered, and there seemed to be a cracking sound. Fellow Taoist Hua, please wait. Duan Yiming's expression changed and he hurriedly shouted. If you use your technique, this green spirit flying sword will be subdued, but the information of my sect's disciple will also be lost. I'm afraid that it will be detrimental to the search for the missing disciple. Haha, since I can subdue it, does that mean that this flying sword belongs to Weeping Moon City? Hua Jianyu laughed and let go of the flying sword. Fellow Taoist, you're twisting words and forcing logic. Wang Xuyao said anxiously. It seems like fellow Taoist Wang is twisting words and forcing logic too. Hua Jinyu smiled. Since Weeping Moon City has no idea about the origin of this flying sword, why would there be a cultivator with such a high cultivation level like fellow Taoist Hua in charge of the auction? There wasn't a single cultivator in the middle stage of the Golden Core realm in the auction, right? Wang Xuyao rebuked without hesitation. Hua Jinyu shook his head. Fellow Taoist Wang is wrong. I'm afraid that there are 2 middle-stage Golden Core realm cultivators in this auction. Moreover, if it weren't for me, how would such a thing happen? Wouldn't the reputation and face of Weeping Moon City be trampled on? Junior sister, let's not talk about this anymore. Duan Yiming frowned slightly and cupped his hands towards Hua Jinyu. I just have 2 questions. Please speak. Firstly, I would like to ask, where did Weeping Moon City get this green spirit flying sword? Secondly, I would like to take back this green spirit flying sword. I wonder if Weeping Moon City would let it go. Hua Jinyu squinted his eyes and looked at the green spirit flying sword in his hand, and smiled. Whether this flying sword is the green spirit that you're talking about is another matter. Moreover, Weeping Moon City has always kept the origin of the flying sword a secret for other fellow Taoists. However, since this concerns the lives of 2 sword cultivators, I'll make the decision on behalf of the City Lord of Weeping Moon City. I'll let Chang Fian explain everything to fellow Taoist Duan in detail. Thank you very much. Duan Yiming's face was filled with joy, and he cupped his hands in thanks. Senior Duan. Chang Fian smiled bitterly and said, it's very simple. A month ago, a 10th layer Qi refining cultivator came to Weeping Moon City's auction. This cultivator's appearance was very ordinary, and there was nothing special about him. Naturally, I hope Senior Duan can forgive this cultivator's appearance. I can't and I don't dare to hand it over to you. Otherwise, the reputation of Weeping Moon City that has been built for thousands of years will be ruined. Duan Yumming's face was a little gloomy. He squinted his eyes and said nothing. Chang Fian continued. That cultivator brought this flying sword out, saying that he found it somewhere and wanted to sell it to Weeping Moon City. Of course, Weeping Moon City also knew about the disappearance of your disciples. At that time, we also asked about it. However, Senior Duan, think about it. This cultivator is only at the 10th layer Qi refining realm. He can't possibly be a match for the Foundation Establishment female sword cultivator that Senior mentioned, can he? Moreover, Weeping Moon City's auction also requires us to earn spiritual stones. There's no reason for us not to take this business that's delivered to our doorstep, right? So Weeping Moon City took this flying sword away, using it for the auction today? Wang Shuyao sneered. Yes, it's exactly as Senior Wang said. Chang Fian nodded and said sincerely. At that time, the disciples of Weeping Moon City even advised that cultivator to sell it on consignment. That way, Weeping Moon City would only take a few spiritual stones and most of the profit would still go to that cultivator. However, the cultivator had to go on an adventure and didn't have the time to wait for a month. Therefore, the disciples of Weeping Moon City could only buy this flying sword at a high price and then bid for it here. Actually, Weeping Moon City was taking a huge risk by doing this. If no one bid for it, this flying sword would be destroyed in the hands of Weeping Moon City, like the previous item that no one bid for it. Weeping Moon City is indeed benevolent and righteous. Wang Shuyao couldn't help but sneer again. That's right. Weeping Moon City has always been a city of integrity. Fellow cultivators, you have all come to bid for it because of Weeping Moon City's integrity. If not for that, I wouldn't have dared to speak so confidently here. Chang Fian said seriously. Forget it. Duan Yumming waved his hand and said. I, a sword cultivator, also bid, so I understand the rules of this auction. Since fellow Taoists can't say more, then give this green spirit flying sword to my Xian sword sect. I won't pursue the negligence of your city. Hehe, Senior Duan, this is an auction. Weeping Moon City used a large amount of spiritual stones to exchange for this flying sword. If you want to get this flying sword, I'm afraid you'll have to pay a certain price. Chang Fian glanced at Hua Jianyu and said in a tone that was neither arrogant nor humble. Since this is Xian Sword Sect's flying sword, why do we still have to pay spiritual stones? Wang Shuyao was furious. Chang Fian smiled apologetically. It seems, Senior, you can't prove that this flying sword belongs to your sect, right? How many spiritual stones? Duan Yumming's face was so gloomy that it looked like black water was about to drip down. Fellow Taoists, this humble Taoist apologizes to you on behalf of my city. Chang Fian didn't directly say anything to Duan Yumming. Instead, he turned around and bowed to the crowd. He said sincerely, this item is related to the disappearance of Huan Country's sword cultivators. I have no choice but to delay everyone's bidding and sell this flying sword to the sword cultivator senior, who came from afar. The crowd of cultivators applauded and praised. Fellow cultivator Chang, your Weeping Moon City is really benevolent. Forget it, since there are sword cultivators here, we'll give them some leeway. Naturally, there were also cultivators who weren't happy. Since it's an auction, then let's see who can offer more spiritual stones. I also want this flying sword. If the sword cultivator can't offer enough spiritual stones, I will take this flying sword. Looking coldly at Chang Fian's performance, Duan Yumming asked again in a deep voice. How many spiritual stones does this flying sword cost? Not much, not much. Chang Fian smiled and reported a number. This much? Wang Shuyao exclaimed. This is enough to bid for a treasure. That's right, the price of this flying sword is already that of a treasure. Chang Fian smiled and said. Moreover, this is the spiritual stones that my Weeping Moon City paid for the flying sword from that cultivator. I definitely didn't add a single extra spiritual stone. Then, Chang Fian glanced at Hua Jinyu and smiled. Of course, if the two seniors don't have enough spiritual stones, you can also exchange your flying swords for it. How dare you? Wang Shuya was furious. A rainbow flew out from her side. Chapter 1704. How dare you? Without waiting for Wang Shuya to finish her words and before the rainbow sword could reach the stage, Hua Jinyu also shouted angrily and waved his left hand. Everyone could see clearly that Hua Jinyu was holding a magic weapon that looked like a ruler in his hand. As he shook it slightly, a light ball in the shape of a crescent moon flew out from the ruler and blocked the rainbow sword. Emerald Wave herding moon ruler, a cultivator below exclaimed, "Let's go." Seeing the emerald light ball flying out, Duan Yuming shouted and the fishes around him flew out. Duan Yuming's figure gradually became blurry, and he followed the fishes out of the auction. I'd like to see which cultivator dares to compete with this flying sword. When Wang Shuyao saw her senior apprentice brother leave, she clenched her teeth and also activated her sword art. The rainbow immediately changed direction and followed the fish. She also entered her flying sword and charged toward one of the small doors. While she was in the air, she said hatefully, "What a pity." Pa-pa-pa sounds were heard. How could the restriction on the small doors withstand the impact of two golden core stage swordsmen? It had long been broken. The brilliance flickered and the two swords disappeared, leaving behind two small black doors. Hua Jinyu's crescent moon ruler flew halfway and turned back. He sneered, "Sword cultivators, their attack power is indeed powerful. Unfortunately, with Ai's cultivation level, what can they do?" After that, he glanced at Chang Fian and transmitted his voice to him. Then his entire body swayed and a residual shadow flashed across the sky. He disappeared from the high platform again. Seeing the three golden core stage cultivators disappear, the crowd was in an uproar. Even Xiao Hua, who was sitting at the back, seemed to be disappointed. It seemed that he was not satisfied and everything was over. That's right. When the cultivators saw the two sword cultivators taking out their flying swords and Hua Jinyu taking out his magic weapon, the emerald wave wounding moon ruler, they were all expecting a shocking battle that would broaden their horizons. Who knew that it would end so anticlimactically? Hua Jinyu obviously had the chance to stop the two of them from escaping, but he didn't stop them. He didn't even chase after them. Instead, he said, "The attack power of sword cultivators is amazing." The attack power of sword cultivators was naturally amazing. Did Elder Hua need to repeat himself? On the high platform, Chang Fian smiled. Looks like the reputation of Weeping Moon City has spread to Huan country. Even sword cultivators came to Weeping Moon City's auction to search for clues. Of course they're right. It's just that, these sword cultivators really, they make me speechless. Since they want to participate in the auction, I will follow the rules. If you bring spiritual stones, I will give you my flying sword. Such a tough attitude, Sai, I really need to correct it. Alright, let's continue with the auction for the finale of the auction. Chang Fian clapped his hands and said, "I'm sure all of you have heard the price that I mentioned just now. That's the starting price of the flying sword. If any of you like it, feel free to bid. Don't worry, Weeping Moon City will keep everyone's secret. We will definitely not let the sword cultivators know who bid for it." However, after seeing the sword cultivators' flying swords, everyone seemed to have lost interest in the flying swords. No one asked about it, and no one bid for it. Even if it was Xiao Hua, he was not afraid of the sword cultivators finding him. However, when he thought about how this flying sword was related to the disappearance of Zhang Yutong and Zhang Yuhe, this green spirit flying sword obviously belonged to Zhang Yutong. Xiao Hua was not stupid enough to get involved in this mess. Moreover, the starting price of the flying sword was really high. Xiao Hua did not have that many spiritual stones. What Xiao Hua thought of, others naturally thought of as well. Chang Fian shouted a few times but no one bid. Chang Fian could only clap his hands and say, "Alright, since that's the case, this flying sword will not be bidding anymore. This time's auction in Weeping Moon City ends here. Fellow Taoists who bid for the items just now, please show your number plates when you leave. Naturally, the city guards of Weeping Moon City will lead you to collect your items. Many thanks, fellow Taoists. I hope to see you again in the next auction." Immediately after, A burst of light flashed and Chang Fian's figure disappeared. However, Xiaohua clearly saw that Chang Fian let out a long sigh. It seemed he was very lucky that the flying sword was not bid for. Who in the world kidnapped Zhang Yutong and Zhang Yuha? I haven't seen them for several years. Why did Zhang Yutong's flying sword suddenly appear again? A 10th layer qi refining cultivator, hee. Even I don't believe it. Can the Xianjian sect believe it? Xiaohua thought as he walked out of the small door. Sure enough, there were many city guards waiting outside the small door. Xiaohua showed his number plate and a 10th layer qi refining city guard respectfully led Xiaohua into a room. Fellow Taoist, please wait a moment. That city guard took Xiaohua's number plate and left the room. Xiaohua used his divine sense to scan the room. He knew that there were many restrictions in the room that even divine sense couldn't penetrate. He secretly praised them in his heart. Not long after, someone came in. Xiaohua thought it was a city guard, but the person who came in was actually Chang Fian. "Io, Senior Chang." Xiaohua quickly greeted him. He bowed and said, "How could I dare to trouble Senior?" "Don't mention it." An amiable smile appeared on Chang Fian's face. He handed over the storage pouch in his hand and said with a smile, "Since fellow Taoist Jiang is willing to help me during the auction, it's only right for me to thank you. Take a look at the things inside." "Yes." Xiaohua took it with a smile. He scanned it with his divine sense and said, "Just right." "And that's good." Chang Fian narrowed his eyes and looked at Xiaohua. He said again, "May I know which cultivation sect fellow Taoist Jiang is from?" This Xiaohua was a little hesitant. There's no need to say it. I originally thought you were from the 100 Herbs sect. Now it seems that you aren't." Chang Fian waved his hand and said with a smile, "I spoke too much." "Thank you for your understanding, Senior." Xiaohua bowed and said, "And fellow Taoist Jiang, you said you still have 1,000-year-old first spirit grass?" Chang Fian helped Xiaohua up and asked. Xiaohua's heart thumped. He knew this was bad. However, he still forced a smile and said, "Yes, but whether it's 1,000-year-old herb or not, I'm not too sure." Fellow Taoist Jiang, don't worry," Chang Fian said with a smile. "I originally wanted to return the favor, but I was afraid that you didn't have anything to show me. Since you really have the first spirit grass, then it's fine." "What do you mean, Senior Chang?" Xiaohua was a little confused. Could it be that Senior Chang can tell me about the 2 gold leaves? Two different things. Chang Fian waved his hand and said with a smile, "Forgive me for not being able to tell you about the gold leaves. This is related to the rules of my Weeping Moon City. And of course I can still tell you. These gold leaves were entrusted to me by a cultivation family in the south of Meng Kingdom. As for more, I can't tell you." Chapter 1705. A cultivator family in the south of Meng country? Xiaohua's brows slightly wrinkled as he secretly muttered in his heart. My Imperial Thunder Sect's ancient books have records of the Meng Empire. Not to mention the Meng Empire, even the other 2 countries have thousands of large and small cultivator families, perhaps even tens of thousands of cultivator families. It's just the south of the Meng Empire. Senior Chang, Xiaohua cupped his hands and said with a smile, "I think that cultivator from that cultivator family also wants the Qianmo secret stone. When I find it, I'll definitely go back and exchange it with them. So this cultivator might not be unwilling to let me know his identity, right?" Haha, Chang Fian laughed and waved his hand. "I don't know if that cultivator is willing or not. Maybe he wants you to know. However, rules are rules. This old man cannot disobey them. Elder Hua cannot disobey them. Even the city lord of my humble city cannot disobey them. Otherwise, how can my Weeping Moon City establish itself among the 7 great cities of the country of Xi?" Xiaohua's expression turned serious. He bowed and said, "Thank you for teaching me, Senior Chang." "Good." Chang Fian's eyes flashed with surprise. He thought that this kid could be taught. He waved his hand and took out a stone-like jade charm. Then he handed it over and said, "This old man only wanted to meet you once. But who would have thought that little friend Jiang would have Ling Yi Chao? Now that I look at little friend Jiang again, your aptitude is really outstanding. Hee, this old man won't ask which sect you're from. This is a small favor that I'm returning to you. Please accept it. What's this? Xiaohua didn't think that the auction was a favor, but since Chang Fian said so, he had to accept it. When he took the jade talisman, he felt that it was slightly hot. This jade talisman was different from ordinary jade talismans. It was the size of a palm, more than twice the size of ordinary jade talismans. Do you know about the auction in my Weeping Moon City? Seeing Chang Fian's smiling eyes flashing with a hint of pride, Xiaohua shook his head and said, "Forgive me for being short-sighted. I don't know about this auction." Haha, you don't have to feel ashamed. Chang Fian laughed and said, "If you're not at the late stage of foundation establishment, you won't know about this auction. If you really know about it, how can this favor be counted as a favor?" This Xiaohua understood and looked at the jade talisman in his hand. This jade talisman is the proof of participation in the secret auction. Chang Fian pointed with his hand and said, "Although I'm not in the late stage of foundation establishment, I can use my status as the lord of the auction to obtain this certificate. It's just that this old man has something to attend to in 10 days, so I won't be able to participate." It just so happens that little friend Jiang gave this old man some face during today's auction. So this old man will give this opportunity to little friend Jiang. Xiaohua panicked and said in a low voice, "Senior Chang, the people participating in the secret auction meeting are all late-stage foundation building cultivators, core formation seniors. Junior is only in the aura refining realm. I'm afraid it won't be good for me to go, right?" Hee, it doesn't matter. Who would know that you're in the chi refining stage? Don't worry and go. If you don't say anything and this old man doesn't say anything, who will know? Chang Fian patted Xiaohua's shoulder and said with a mysterious smile, "Also, maybe there's an extremely good opportunity inside that will help you advance to the 12th layer of chi refining? In this secret auction meeting, things that you can't even imagine will often appear." Hearing this, Xiaohua's heart was slightly moved. That's right, core formation cultivators and foundation establishment cultivators were specially participating in this secret auction. Although Chang Fian didn't mention nascent soul cultivators, it was obvious that since others couldn't see through his cultivation, then other people's cultivation might also be in the nascent soul stage. How bad could the things that these almighty people used to exchange be? Fortunately, he had this 1,000-year-old Ling One grass. Otherwise, Chang Fian might not be able to give this jade talisman to him. If that's the case, then this junior won't be unreasonable. Many thanks for Senior Chang's kindness. Xiaohua immediately cupped his hands in thanks and put away the jade talisman. Chang Fian nodded and said with a smile, "I hope that your sect will participate in my Weeping Moon City's auctions more in the future. Next time, this old man will prepare more spiritual herbs. I hope that your sect will support me more." Xiaohua secretly laughed and cupped his hands. "This junior will definitely tell my sect's master that this junior will take his leave." After watching Xiaohua leave the small house, Chang Fian's expression changed, and he hurriedly left. Xiaohua's jade talisman to participate in the secret auction was just a small matter. What he needed to worry about was the matter of the flying sword. The Weeping Moon City's good plan was to sell the flying sword and make a profit. As for whether or not the flying sword belonged to the 2 missing sword cultivators, how would they know? Even if it was true, after the auction was over, the Weeping Moon City would be able to push all the blame away. Who would have thought that it would be a coincidence that Duan Yuming and Wang Xuyao actually appeared in the auction? This flying sword really did belong to Zhang Yutong. If that was the case, then the matter would be troublesome. Chang Fian had no choice but to hurry out of the city to take care of the matter. He wanted to see if he could find the cultivator who sold the flying sword. Naturally, whether or not he could find him was unknown. The key was that he had to go to the Weeping Moon City to find him. Xiaohua came out of the auction building and returned to his original appearance. He originally thought that Sun Shu and the others were waiting anxiously outside. But when he came out to take a look, he actually guessed half of it right. Although they were anxious, the only people waiting were Sun Shu and Qian Diheng. Kuan Fian was not outside. Junior brother Xiao, why did you only come out now? As soon as Qian Diheng saw Xiaohua, he shouted, "You only bid for some things, Why are you so slow? Other people have already come out. Hee, this little brother bid for a good thing. Senior Chang personally came to see us and invited us to participate in the auction next time. This little brother will now explain to senior brother Qian that whether or not we will come next time will be decided by senior brother and senior sister. Xiaohua immediately told Qian Diheng about his promise to Changfian. Qian Diheng was very happy. He patted his shoulder and said, "If you bid for the flying sword at the end, Senior Chang will meet you. This brother will also believe it. But there are many things at the beginning. Even if you bid for the expensive ones, you won't be able to bid for them. Believe it or not, it's up to you." Xiaohua touched his nose and smiled. Then, he looked left and right and said curiously, "This little brother came out late. Why is senior sister Kuan even later than this little brother? I'm afraid that the last few magic tools were all won by senior sister Kuan." Qian Diheng looked at the sky with slanted eyes. The sky was pitch black and there were countless brilliant stars. He had a thoughtful expression on his face. After a while he nodded deeply. "I's observation of the sky at night. I'm afraid that's the case." Ha ha ha, Sun Shu at the side couldn't bear it anymore. He held his stomach and bent over saying, "Junior brother Qian, I never thought that junior brother would be as interesting as junior brother Xiao. One is marked by the company one keeps. There's no other way." Qian Diheng spread his hands. This action seemed to be something Xiaohua had done before. And yes, there's no other way. This time, Xiaohua didn't touch his nose. Instead, he rubbed his nose very helplessly. With great difficulty, Sun Shu held back his laughter. With a crimson face, he looked at the entrance of the auction and said with a smile, "You still need to observe the sky at night? Senior sister Kuan is a disciple of the Heavenly Thunder Palace. It's only natural that she has some spirit stones in her storage bag. The magic tools in this auction are also pleasing to the eye. Winning one doesn't count for much. Ai, this young master is still a poor boy ah." Xiaohua heard this and cried out in his heart. Thinking about the price of the last few magic tools, he sweated profusely. Since Sun Shu said so, needless to say, Qian Diheng also had a lot of spirit stones in his storage bag. No wonder this guy wants to go to that mysterious place to refine magic tools. Xiaohua thought to himself. In the time it took to smoke half a cigarette, Kuan Fian finally came out. Beside her was a middle-aged cultivator at the 11th level of qi refining. However, that cultivator didn't walk towards Xiaohua and the others. Instead, he cupped his hands and bid farewell to Kuan Fian. While he was at it, he glanced at Xiaohua and the others before turning around and hurrying in another direction. Qian Diheng was obviously not as close to Kuan Fian as he was to Xiaohua. Looking at the back of that middle-aged cultivator, he asked with a strange voice, "Senior sister Kuan is in a good mood. I waited outside for senior sister and drank a lot of cold wind. Senior sister is actually chatting with a fellow cultivator you know in the auction." Kuan Fian glared at Qian Diheng. Looking around, she said in a low voice, "This fellow cultivator is also someone I met occasionally when I was traveling in the past. I don't really know him well. However, just now, I got some things in the auction and bumped into him when I came out." "You just bumped into him for such a long time?" Qian Diheng curled his lips. "And I said something, so I was delayed." Kuan Fian seemed to be thinking about the matter just now and was too lazy to care about Qian Diheng's attitude. Oh. Sun Shu and the others looked at each other, their eyes filled with curiosity. "Let's talk about it when we get back." Kuan Fian seemed to have made a decision. She waved her hand and said, "This matter is very secretive and cannot be leaked." When they returned to the inn, the four people activated the restriction formation in the room. Only then did Kuan Fian tell the whole story. It turned out that this middle-aged qi refining cultivator was called Chang Lan. He was a disciple of a cultivation family. Kuan Fian had met him a few years ago when she went out with her senior sister to gain experience. They were looking for spiritual herbs together. He could be considered a reliable person. Today, he happened to meet Kuan Fian in the auction and invited her to Jiangqing City to participate in a small e-fair. He also said that this e-fair would be attended by seniors of the Foundation establishment realm. At that time, there might be a condensed treasure. Condensed treasure? Xiaohua was stunned. First, he thought of the jade slip that Zhen Qing gave him that recorded the understanding of breaking through the Foundation establishment realm. Then, he thought of the ancient books that he saw in the 8 great thunder palaces of the Imperial Thunder sect. He couldn't help but think to himself, such a precious thing can be exchanged? Alas, but that's not right. Xiaohua thought of another layer. Qian Diheng and Sun Shu, who were at the side, were similarly stunned. Soon after, they were wild with joy, causing Xiaohua to be baffled. Go, why not? Just for the condensed treasure, it's worth going. Qian Diheng agreed. And that Jiangqing city is close to the route that we planned to take previously. It won't be too far away. Sun Shu seconded. This Xiaohua said in a low voice. The condensed treasure is such a precious treasure. How could it appear in a small fair in Jiangqing city? Chapter 1706. He, junior brother Zhao's words are wrong. Qian Diheng said with a smile. I believe that Martial Uncle Helpless has already told junior brother Xiao about the condensed knowledge treasure? Xiaohua shook his head and said. Master didn't say anything. He knew that junior brother was a loose cultivator, and that it wasn't easy to reach Foundation establishment. He was also afraid that junior brother would be distracted, so he never mentioned the condensed knowledge treasure. But junior brother's big senior brother mentioned it when junior brother was chatting with junior brother. And it should be so, Kuan Fian said with a smile. Senior Xiang must have also thought about the condensed knowledge treasure before. But this condensed knowledge treasure is too rare. If Senior Xiang had such good fortune, I'm afraid that he wouldn't need to spend 50 years to reach Foundation establishment. Junior brother always felt that this was just a legend. The condensed knowledge treasure is condensed by Foundation establishment, and even Aura's core stage cultivators using a special secret technique before they reach the end of their lifespan. Let's not talk about the success rate of this secret technique being extremely low. Not even 1 out of 10,000 is left. Let's talk about the after effects of using this secret technique. Who would dare to blindly try it? Xiaohua shook his head disapprovingly. What after effects? It's nothing more than becoming a mortal who has lost both his mind and cultivation, waiting for the end of his lifespan. Kuan Fian said unconvinced. But if this condensed knowledge treasure is found by Senior's reincarnation again, he can immediately comprehend the comprehension within the condensed knowledge treasure. Although his cultivation may not be able to recover in the blink of an eye, but the realm of his Tao heart will immediately return to the realm he was in when he was alive. Xiaohua was even more disdainful. Let's not talk about the condensed knowledge treasure's secret technique, that every cultivator has a special soul imprint. Even the talk of reincarnation. I'm afraid there's no basis for it, but just as Xiaohua said this, Xiaohua's mind suddenly lit up, like a bolt of lightning flashing. Condensed knowledge treasure. However, if a reincarnated cultivator finds the condensed knowledge treasure that he left behind in his previous life, the realm of his Tao heart will immediately recover. He only needs to accumulate his cultivation. The various realms that he cultivated in his previous life would not encounter any bottlenecks. All realms would be like a flat land. I have cultivated till today. I have never encountered any bottlenecks. Could it be that I am also the reincarnation of a cultivator? A bone-chilling feeling arose spontaneously. Even if that's not the case, since I won't encounter any bottlenecks in my cultivation, then the matter of the condensing treasure is most likely true. Xiaohua immediately felt that his smile, when he saw the matter of the condensing treasure, was really superficial. Seeing Xiaohua's face suddenly change, Sun Shu asked in concern, Junior brother Xiao, what's wrong? Junior brother Xiao must have thought of something, and felt that he had no reason to refute it, right? Qian Diheng smiled and said to Xiaohua, Junior brother Xiao joined my Imperial Thunder sect halfway, so I'm afraid you don't know some of the sect's secrets. Then, she glanced at Sun Shu and said mysteriously, I presume senior sister Sun has something to say? Yes, the matter of the condensed treasure is indeed true. Sun Shu's face froze and nodded. Since we came out together with junior brother Xiao, there are some things that can be said. Let's be frank and honest. Junior brother Xiao, 2,000 years ago, there was a senior in my Imperial Thunder sect. I don't dare to mention his name. Because his nascent soul was not formed, he destroyed his own golden core and luckily used a secret technique to refine the condensing treasure. And dozens of years later, this senior once again coincidentally entered my Imperial Thunder sect as a loose cultivator and obtained the condensing treasure that he refined himself. Now he is already a demigod existence. Hiss, Xiao Hua took a deep breath and looked at Sun Shu with an inconceivable expression. He muttered, There really is such a thing. All of this, isn't it too much of a coincidence? That's right. How is it just a coincidence? This is simply heaven's will. Kuren Fei Yan's face was full of longing. This senior was a female in his previous life, but in this life he became a male. Not to mention entering my Imperial Thunder sect. He even obtained the condensing treasure hidden in my Imperial Thunder sect. If this isn't heaven's will, then what is? Yes, it's simply inconceivable. Sun Shu looked at Xiao Hua with a pair of beautiful eyes. Talking about the previous life, talking about reincarnation, naturally, it's also true. This senior recalled the events of his previous life? Xiao Hua's heart thumped as he asked anxiously. A trace of affection flashed across Sun Shu's eyes as she said with a smile, How is that possible? The condensing treasure is merely the comprehension of cultivation. How can the memories of the previous life be left behind? Sigh, if one could know the events of the previous life, wouldn't this world be in chaos? Previous life, present life, and future life. These three lives are the world's most mysterious Tao of life and death. That condensing treasure can't even condense a trace of heavenly Tao. So how can it leave behind memories? Qian Diheng said in a low voice. Tao of life and death. Heavenly Tao? Xiao Hua was slightly shocked. His eyes swiveled and he cupped his hands, saying, Senior brother Qian, truly wise. This little brother has never heard of these before. I'm just making things up, Qian Diheng said with a mischievous smile. This is all from when the Heavenly Thunder Palace's Grand Master was chatting. This little brother eavesdropped. This little brother is ridiculing himself. Senior brother Qian, you know that this little brother is a loose cultivator, and have never heard of this kind of thing before. Yet you still bring it out to entice this little brother? Xiao Hua said with a smile that was not a smile. Alright, this little brother also doesn't understand. Don't laugh at me. Qian Diheng looked at Sun Shu and Kuren Fei Yan and said, It is said that this world has 3,000 great Taos. The leading great Tao is the Tao of life and death. Next is the Tao of karma. After that is yin-yang, samsara, stars, 5 elements, 8 trigrams, and so on. The power of these great Taos are different. But as long as one can cultivate one can cultivate to become an immortal, become a god, and enjoy eternal happiness and longevity. Qian Diheng's eloquence was extremely good. When he first started speaking, Xiao Hua's mouth and tongue were dry and his mind was filled with fascination. But as he listened, Xiao Hua felt that something was wrong. Qian Diheng was going further and further away, similar to the storytellers of the secular world. Cough that. Senior brother Qian. Xiao Hua could not help but interrupt the talkative Qian Diheng. Chapter 1707. Seeing Qian Diheng and Kuren Fei quarreling, Xiao Hua secretly laughed and said enviously, Having a background is really good. I just heard about this condensed knowledge treasure. Who knew that they already knew about the 3,000 great Taos? Can't compare. When the two of them shut up, Xiao Hua smiled and said, Little brother still has a question. I wonder if senior brother Qian or senior sister Kuren can solve it? Fine, senior sister Sun. The two of them said at the same time. Senior sister Sun. Little brother believes that there is a condensed knowledge treasure, but if a condensed knowledge treasure refined by a spirit-severing stage senior is found by his descendant, wouldn't he suddenly reach the spirit-severing stage? Xiao Hua asked. Sun Shu smiled and said, Didn't junior brother Qian just say? A condensed knowledge treasure can't condense a trace of the heavenly Tao. Our qi refinement, foundation establishment, and nascent soul all have to give birth to the child of the heavenly Tao, nascent soul. This nascent soul is the crystallization of heaven and earth's spiritual qi. A nascent soul contains the heavenly Tao. Starting from the nascent soul stage, all comprehension would contain a trace of the heavenly Tao. Thus, it was impossible to refine the heavenly Tao into the condensed knowledge treasure. Therefore, there is no condensed knowledge treasure refined by a spirit-severing stage senior. Oh, so it's like this. Xiaohua nodded and had a trace of understanding. Then what is the condensed knowledge treasure refined from? I don't know about this. Qian Diheng smiled and said, I am still young and have never thought about it. And, it is said that the materials required are extremely rare, even my imperial thunder sect. I'm afraid we don't have it. Seeing that the three of them had some hope and enthusiasm in their eyes, Xiaohua suddenly realized and pointed at the three of them, saying, Could it be? You all think that this condensed knowledge treasure was left behind by you in your previous life. What do you think? Qian Diheng and the other two said in unison. Maybe it was left behind by you in your previous life. Xiaohua smiled bitterly. I understand. If anyone knows about this thing, they will definitely try their luck. Even if it isn't, what's wrong with it? Yes, what if it is? Kuan Fian smiled and said, That would be great. But the fellow Taoist that senior sister Kuan knows is merely a disciple of a cultivator clan. Is this news reliable? Sun Shu was somewhat doubtful. Who cares? Qian Diheng said disdainfully, Love isn't it? Since we have to go there anyway, we'll just take a small detour to take a look. Even if he didn't, it would be good to exchange for something else. Alas, I didn't get any benefits from today's auction. That flying sword might really be Zhang Yutong's. My goodness, it looks really tempting. When will the meeting be held? Should we hurry over now? Sun Shu urged. Kuan Fian smiled. 2 months later, there is no rush. If we use the teleportation array in Weeping Moon City, we should be able to arrive there in half a month. As soon as Qian Diheng heard this, he hurriedly winked at Xiaohua and said anxiously, Don't worry. And indeed, don't worry. All of you have obtained good things, but this little brother is still empty-handed. These few days, this little brother will walk around the Chiyu city and see if I can find anything. That's true. There are still 2 months left. Let's wait a few days before we leave. Xiaohua also agreed. You two, Sun Shu and Kuan Fian, looked at the two of them strangely and then smiled. Is there something fishy? No. Xiaohua and Qian Diheng shook their heads firmly at the same time. Between cultivators, there were naturally secrets. Sun Shu and Kuan Fian also knew about it. Only because the four of them were traveling together and were fellow disciples of the same sect, they asked a little. Seeing the two of them deny it, the other two naturally wouldn't say anything more. When Xiaohua was in Luan's shop, he had the opportunity to ask about the location of the weapon refiner, but because of his identity, he was afraid of arousing Luan Qing or Luan Han's suspicion, so he didn't ask. At this time, he could only wait for Qian Diheng's arrangement. Moreover, when he came back last night, Xiaohua had already thought of the mistake in his whereabouts. When the four of them decided to stay, he suggested to find another inn. Qian Diheng and the others naturally didn't have any objections. The next day, the four of them changed to another inn that was far away. After entering their respective rooms, Qian Diheng quietly went out. Sun Shu and Kuan Fian acted as if they didn't know. The two of them agreed to go out, presumably to buy yellow talismans, pills and other things, but Xiaohua declined and stayed in the room alone. First, he took out the talisman that Chang Fian gave him and carefully looked at it. The talisman was very simple. It was a place, a time and a sentence. There were no other words. Should I go or not? Xiaohua was a little hesitant. To be honest, facing senior cultivators who could kill him with a raise of their hand, Xiaohua's heart was really nervous. That feeling of no safety made him feel uncomfortable. Forget it, I'd better not go. Xiaohua clapped his hand and stored it into the space, thinking, the things that Foundation Establishment and Golden Core cultivators want to secretly exchange, if not magic weapons, then it's top-quality pills. It's definitely not something that I can use now. Why should I go? If I encounter something that I like, I don't have enough spirit stones to exchange. Just look at that flying sword. If I don't take out thousands of years old, 10,000 years old spirit grass, I definitely can't exchange it. And these are all things that make others envious. I'm just chi refining stage 12. Even if I can kill foundation establishment initial stage cultivators, but in the eyes of old monsters who have cultivated for hundreds of years, I'm just a baby. Don't show off your wealth. I'd better wait until my cultivation is higher. Soon after, Xiaohua took out Luan Qing's jade slip and immersed his divine sense into it, slowly comprehending the Luan family's so-called ascending flame of fire art. This ascending flame of fire art was also strange. It was completely different from the fire art of the Samadhi True Fire. The fire art of the Samadhi True Fire taught about how to create the Samadhi True Fire, while the ascending flame of fire art taught about how to cultivate the ascending flame of fire. Naturally, this frost flame technique used the essence of a cultivator to cultivate it, and it was related to the cultivator's physique. Different cultivators of the 5 elements would cultivate different frost flame technique. But what cultivated frost flame technique was the fire seed of frost flame technique. That is, the fire seed that Luan Qing divided from her frost flame technique. Xiaohua comprehended for a long time, his brows tightly knitted. He opened his mouth, and a bit of frost flame technique flew out of his body, lightly floating in front of him. This frost flame technique admittedly has all 5 elements, but clearly, the speed at which it swallows wood attribute spiritual energy is much faster than other spiritual energy. This Luan Qing should have a wood attribute physique. This young master's physique is hidden fire. Using this fire seed to cultivate it is a lot worse. Moreover, this young master used Luan Qing's fire seed to cultivate it. This frost flame technique can be considered as the reproduction of Luan Qing's frost flame technique. In essence, it carries the mark of the Luan family. If this frost flame technique is purely used to refine magic tools, it can be used to attack, but it has a huge drawback. If someone else obtains the Luan family's fire seed that is several generations older than Luan Qing, this young master's frost flame technique will be innately shorter than that person. This young master will be inviting trouble to himself. It's really inappropriate, really inappropriate. Xiaohua hesitated again, because his previous idea was only to use this frost flame technique to refine tools. But after seeing the fire art and Luan Qing's obscure introduction, he knew that refining tools was only the use of the frost flame technique after its decline. He already had other ideas in his heart, and didn't want to simply use this inferior fire seed to cultivate the frost flame technique. Moreover, listening to Luan Qing's tone, although this frost flame technique is a heavenly fire seed, its power will decrease with each generation. He didn't know how many generations this frost flame technique has been passed down. Even if it was successfully cultivated, he feared that it would have long lost the reputation of being a heavenly fire seed. It also couldn't be used to refine strange materials like the Great Wisdom Sword, so why would he go through the trouble of cultivating it? Damn it, after thinking about it, this young master seems to have suffered a loss. Xiaohua bitterly smiled, and put away the jade slip and fire seed. He thought to himself, unless I find a pure frost flame technique, the Samadhi True Fire's fire art and mother-child spirit fruit can be considered to have benefited Luan Qing for nothing. However, where could he get the pure Ling Yuzhu fire seed? Even the Luan family didn't have it, so where could he find it in this vast Xiaoyu continent? I'd better obediently stick to my old profession first. Xiaohua patted his head, and his mind entered the space. As he urged the puppet to open up a new medicinal field, preparing to plant the more than 400 bell spirit herbs he had just won from the auction, he looked at Little Yellow and Little Silver. These 2 little things were sleeping soundly, especially Little Silver, who was no longer as quick-witted as before. He was lying in a pile of spirit herbs, and there seemed to be a half-eaten spirit fruit in his little mouth. His little tail swayed slightly in the spirit herbs from time to time, and his little eyes were closed very tightly. His little eyelids were still twitching slightly from time to time, as if he had sensed Xiaohua's state of mind. He opened his eyes a little bit to sweep them over, and then closed them tightly again. The golden lines on Little Silver's nose seemed to have deepened a lot, and they're actually a little curved, as if they're going to become runes. Xiaohua was a little surprised. Also, Little Silver's body is even more pure white, and there are clearly some golden threads on his body. Shortly after, Xiaohua looked at Little Yellow. There wasn't any special change in Little Yellow, but it felt like it was growing again. These two little things can grow even when they're sleeping. I'm really envious. Xiaohua sighed with emotion as he looked at the divine power centipede not far away from Little Silver. After several years of recuperation, this thing had already recovered from its injuries. It was just that, this thing was also sleeping soundly and quietly. Furthermore, it seemed to be extremely afraid of Little Silver, and kept quite a distance from him. Looking at the black brilliance on the divine power centipede's back, which also had a faint golden light, Xiaohua understood. Could it be that this young master's space can all demon beasts evolve? But time clearly passes slower in this space than outside. Look at the water pattern butterfly egg. It's been so many years, but it still hasn't hatched. And there's also the ice worm king egg. The damaged part hasn't been repaired yet. Xiaohua changed his mind and thought, forget about these things that haven't hatched yet. However, this godly power centipede will most likely be of great use in the future. This young master still needs to find a spirit storage pouch and place this thing inside to raise properly. Chapter 1708. Xiaohua's mind came out of the space, and his eyes were filled with anticipation. When he thought about how Fan Tong had controlled the mighty power centipede to attack him, his heart burned with passion. This is a spirit beast. If I can control it freely, it'll be like having an extra helper. However, this mighty power centipede is different from Little Yellow and Little Silver. I can't control it myself, but if I rely on Little Silver to control it, there'll be another obstacle. It seems that I have to find a way to control it. While he was thinking, Xiaohua took out the book from the spirit husbandry sect. In the past, his cultivation was weak, and he only wanted to find cultivation methods and pills that could increase his cultivation. He didn't care about the insect scripture or the spirit beasts. Later on, he focused on cultivation and put his energy on Dharma treasures, so he didn't think about these things. Only now did he remember the insect scripture that he had long forgotten. And as expected, the spirit husbandry sect's jade slip doesn't have any cultivation methods, but there are methods to raise and control spirit beasts. The insect scripture naturally talked about spirit insects and how to raise them. There was a general introduction to all kinds of spirit insects. Unfortunately, Xiaohua wasn't interested in this and only looked at it briefly before flipping to the back. Oh, it's here. When he flipped to the end of the insect scripture, Xiaohua saw a few pages of methods to control spirit insects. Then, Xiaohua didn't hesitate and carefully comprehended it word by word. After an unknown amount of time, Xiaohua put away the insect scripture and closed his eyes. Then, as if he thought of something, he waved his hand and another small book came out of the space. It was the one Ling Jingyi gave to Xiaohua, along with the magic treasure that could subdue the fire ape. Xiaohua didn't dare to take it out casually before, for fear that Ling Jingyi had done something to it. Now that he thought about controlling spirit insects, he naturally thought of this book. Unfortunately, this book only recorded the method to refine the magic treasure Shadow Moon. It didn't say anything about how to control spirit beasts. And Shadow Moon is so important to Flying Phoenix Ridge, and it's passed down from their ancestors. After refining it, I should be able to obtain the method to subdue the fire ape. Xiaohua kept the booklet and thought to himself, now this young master's cultivation should be comparable to Ling Jingyi and Pu Jianyuan. However, since the two of them are unable to subdue the fire ape, this young master should not be anxious. Then Xiaohua closed his eyes and pondered hard. His hands would form some mysterious seals from time to time, stirring the world spirit energy in the room. After a long time, Xiaohua opened his eyes and waved his hand, taking the godly power centipede out of the space. The godly power centipede suddenly appeared in the middle of the room. It was very surprised and looked a bit impatient. It twisted its body a few times and flew in a certain direction. Xiaohua seemed to have a card up his sleeve. He opened his left hand slightly and grabbed at the air. The divine power centipede immediately stopped in midair. As if it had sensed danger, the Herculean centipede struggled with all its might. Its pitch-black body glowed with a faint golden color. This Herculean centipede is indeed powerful. Seeing that the Herculean centipede was still able to move under his magic power, Xiaohua couldn't help but be astonished. Then, his face revealed a happy expression. The seals in his right hand were quickly formed. Jiji. Different seals struck the Herculean centipede's body. The Herculean centipede struggled even more fiercely. The more it struggled, the more magic power surged out from Xiaohua's left hand. After the time it took to eat a meal, the Herculean centipede stopped struggling. It had a dejected look as it floated in midair. Damn it, subduing a spiritual insect is actually so difficult. Xiaohua sighed. If this young master didn't have so much magic power, this little thing would have really flown away. Then he withdrew his left hand. Both his hands formed seals and attacked the Herculean centipede. After several seals, an illusory image emerged from the Herculean centipede's body. Xiaohua knew that this was the Herculean centipede's soul essence. When the soul essence left the body, Xiaohua was very cautious as he formed the last seal. He pressed his thumb between his eyebrows. Then he shouted, "Quick!" He pressed his hand down. That thumb was pressing on the Herculean centipede's soul essence. The Herculean centipede seemed to be burned by fire. It struggled painfully and rolled back and forth in midair. However, the strange thing was that the Herculean centipede's soul essence didn't move at all under Xiaohua's thumb. "Withdraw!" Xiaohua chanted again. The trace of the primordial spirit in his hand was smeared on the Herculean centipede's soul essence. In an instant, Xiaohua felt as if he was the Herculean centipede, and the Herculean centipede was him. A burning sensation came from the depths of his soul. Hiss! Xiaohua sucked in a breath of cold air, and hurriedly withdrew his hand. The Herculean centipede immediately stopped rolling. The soul essence was immediately absorbed into the Herculean centipede's body. At the same time, the pain Xiaohua felt immediately disappeared. Damn it, no wonder I can't take in too many spiritual insects. Xiaohua smiled bitterly, and absorbed the exhausted Herculean centipede into his space. The last bit of pain is indeed short, but it's enough to cause damage to a cultivator's primordial spirit. Subduing such a small Herculean centipede took so much effort. What about subduing a fire ape? It'll be even more difficult. Oh right, I wonder if there's any record of the Herculean centipede in the insect scripture? Xiaohua thought of the insect scripture. Spirit husbandry sex insect scripture mostly recorded spiritual insects. After flipping through it, there was indeed a record of the Herculean centipede. However, there weren't many records. Herculean centipede strong, feeds on spiritual stones. Earth spiritual stones are the best. Ranked 87th. After that, there was nothing else. Ranked 87th? Xiaohua was slightly stunned and thought to himself, such a powerful Herculean centipede is only ranked 87th? Then which spiritual insect is ranked first? Xiaohua hurriedly flipped to the front. Dream mirage butterfly, born to create illusions, feeds on all kinds of mirage spirits. Ranked first. Spirit devouring insect, swallows all kinds of spiritual insects, eats everything. Ranked second. Water pattern butterfly, controls water-type spiritual energy, lives together with rainbow epiphyllum. Ranked 42nd. Feiqing, controls earth-type spiritual energy, is fast, counters iceworm. Ranked 50th. Iceworm controls water-type spiritual energy, lives in groups. Ranked 56th. Damn it, I thought iceworm and water pattern butterfly were some amazing spiritual insects, but their rankings are actually so low. Herculean centipede is also ranked 87th. Damn it, I wonder how powerful the dream mirage butterfly and spirit devouring insect that are ranked second are. After Xiaohua saw it, he couldn't help but be shocked. However, why aren't there any fire apes and spirit seeking mice? And even sky shaking beast isn't there. Chapter 1709. The spirit-seeking mouse and heaven-shaking mouse are not in this insect scripture. Furthermore, The God Power Centipede is so powerful, but it is only ranked 87th. That Fei Qing who is ranked 50th. Wasn't it easy for me to kill him that day? I can't see how powerful it is. This insect scripture. I'm afraid it can't be real. Xiaohua thought and put the insect scripture into his space. Actually, it wasn't Xiaohua's idea. Since the spirit husbandry sect could record the insect scripture, there must be a basis for it. Although the God Power Centipede was strong, in a fight between cultivators, magic power was the most important. If the God Power Centipede didn't have great strength, it would be useless to use force to break through spells. Fei Qing's speed was extremely fast, and it was much more useful than the God Power Centipede in a fight between cultivators. At this moment, the restriction in Xiaohua's house shook. Hee, I think senior brother Qian is looking for me. Xiaohua jumped down from the cloud bed. Seeing that there were no loopholes in the house, he took out a magic tablet and removed the restriction. As expected, it was Qian Diheng outside the house. Seeing Xiaohua open the door, he smiled. Junior brother Xiao, I have completed my task. As he spoke, he entered the house and scanned with his spiritual sense. With a slap of his hand, he took out a three-pronged fork that was 1 foot long from his storage bag. At the tip of the three-pronged fork, there were 3 sharp points that faintly flashed with different lights. Within the lights, there were thin runes flowing. What do you think of my halberd? Qian Diheng waved it flauntingly. As he slightly channeled his magic power, the 3 points of the fork gradually flashed with light. As the runes flowed, they absorbed the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the house. Gradually, 3 balls of light of different colors flashed at the 3 points of the fork. Senior brother Qian's magic weapon is a little strange. Xiaohua scanned with his spiritual sense and said in shock. Other people's magic weapons have only 1 element, but yours actually has 3 different elements: metal, wood, and water. Of course, the way of attack is different, but the power seems to be much weaker, right? Hee, junior brother Xiao, you don't have to worry about this. Qian Diheng waved his hand and put away the magic tool. He stroked it with his hand as if it was a treasure and said, the power of this magic tool will absolutely not decrease because of the attacks of 3 attributes. I won't tell you the details. You only need to know that I spent a large amount of spirit stones to refine 3 different types of magic tools into an even more powerful magic tool. 3 different magic tools? Xiaohua's eyes lit up. Hee, don't worry, junior brother Xiao. How can the place I recommend be wrong? Qian Diheng said complacently, this workshop is the most mysterious place in the Weeping Moon City. Think about it. To be able to forge 3 kinds of magic tools together without weakening their offensive power, what kind of cultivation base does that artificer have? TSK, even if he's not in the late stage of foundation establishment, he's at least in the gold core stage. Don't worry and go. Xiaohua rubbed his nose with his hand and said with a wry smile. But, I'm afraid there's also a lot of spirit stones, right? Of course, asking a gold core stage tool refiner to help, the price is naturally high. Qian Diheng smiles and whispers a number to Xiaohua. When Xiaohua heard this, his face immediately turned green. So much. It's almost the same as bidding for 1 or 2 magic tools. How can it be the same? Qian Diheng obviously didn't care about the number of spirit stones. He waved his hand and said, this was modified by a tool refiner according to my request, and also refined according to my cultivation base. It can't be compared with ordinary magic tools that can be bought through bidding. Moreover, junior brother Xiao also knows that I only have 1 defensive magic tool. Although I'm not afraid of life-threatening situations in many cases, it can't be used to always be attacked by others. Hee, I can't get the same cloud-suppressing seal as you, but getting a powerful magic tool is still possible. Xiaohua nodded. Senior brother Qian, you sent those 3 magic tools over. Did you only get them today? Yes. Exactly 10 days. Qian Diheng patted Xiaohua's shoulder and said, junior brother Xiao, don't blame me for wasting time. You also know the reason. When I get this halberd, I'll be relieved. No matter. I know. Xiaohua's magic tools were of unknown origin, so he naturally understood Qian Diheng. How about this? I still have some spirit stones left. If junior brother Xiao doesn't have enough spirit stones, I'll lend them to you first. Qian Diheng rolled his eyes and said with a smile. Forget it. Xiao Hua knew that he lacked a lot of spirit stones. Qian Diheng's spirit stones were just a drop in the bucket. Senior brother Qian, just tell me the location. Okay. Qian Diheng smiled and whispered, telling him the location of the workshop. Then he patted and handed a triangular magic tablet to Xiao Hua. This magic tablet is the certificate to enter the workshop. Without it, the workshop won't accept you. Xiao Hua scanned the magic tablet with his divine sense. There was a strange fluctuation of spiritual power on it. Obviously, it was a special magic tablet. He reached out and took it. It was cold to the touch, and he didn't know what material it was made of. Go quickly, junior brother Xiao. If you want to refine your cloud suppressing seal, I'm afraid it will take a long time. You should calculate our schedule. Qian Diheng said meaningfully. Okay, junior brother understands. Xiao Hua cupped his hands and sent Qian Diheng out. He followed him out and saw that Qian Diheng entered the house and activated the restriction. Then he saw that Sun Shu and Kuan Fian's houses were also protected by restriction. He knew that the two were also working hard in their houses. Xiao Hua sat in the spirit camel carriage and arrived at the place Qian Diheng mentioned. He paid the spirit stones and looked around. This place was actually very lively. It was different from what he imagined. Hidden in the city. That's right. Xiao Hua squinted his eyes and glanced at the lively workshop 3 zhang away. Then he looked at a tea house on his left. Then, Xiao Hua walked to a secluded place and changed his appearance and height. Then he put on camouflage clothes and walked slowly to the tea house. There were many cultivators in the tea house. There were all kinds of cultivators, but different cultivators gathered in different circles. Those with low cultivations were far from those with high cultivations. Senior, what kind of spirit tea do you want to drink? A boy around the second layer of qi refining hurriedly greeted him with a smile. Anything. Xiao Hua looked at the stairs not far away and said with a smile. Can I go upstairs? This. Upstairs is the place where Foundation Establishment seniors drink tea. If senior is a Foundation Establishment cultivator, you can naturally go up. The boy said with a smile. Foundation Establishment? When Xiao Hua heard this, he didn't say anything and walked up the stairs. He was wearing camouflage clothes now. Who could see his cultivation? Naturally, he wasn't afraid. Sure enough, when he went up the stairs, other than Foundation Establishment cultivators, there were also a few cultivators wearing camouflage clothes like him. However, these cultivators were all alone. There were some spirit fruits and spirit tea in front of them, and they were enjoying it alone. Xiao Hua found a place near the street, and waited for the boy to bring him some spirit tea and a plate of spirit fruits. Xiao Hua slowly tasted them. His gaze wandered around the street. There were many cultivators going in and out of the workshop. Most of them were qi refining cultivators. Occasionally, there were also Foundation Establishment cultivators. Of course, there were also some cultivators wearing camouflage clothes. Their cultivation couldn't be seen. There shouldn't be anything unusual. Xiao Hua slowly finished drinking a pot of spirit tea, and stood up to leave. At this time, a voice transmitted to him. Fellow Taoist, are you here to participate in the secret auction? Secret auction? Xiao Hua was slightly stunned. He turned around and saw a cultivator wearing camouflage clothes facing him. Fellow Taoist, don't panic. I heard that there's a secret auction here. I want to exchange something inside, but I don't have a command talisman. Therefore, I can only wait here. To tell you the truth, I just asked all the Foundation Establishment fellow Taoists in this tea house. None of them are here to participate. Xiao Hua stopped and said promptly, if fellow Taoist has a command talisman, I am willing to pay a high price for it. I'm sorry, fellow Taoist. I just came here to drink tea and buy some magic tools in the workshop below. I've never heard of any secret auction. If fellow Taoist wants something good, can't the auction in Weeping Moon City work? Xiao Hua naturally refused. Oh, I'm sorry to disturb fellow Taoist. That cultivator's tone was filled with indescribable disappointment. However, when he saw Xiao Hua's figure disappear inside the workshop, He looked at the other foundation establishment cultivators. Senior, do you want to buy magic tools or materials for refining? As soon as Xiaohua entered the workshop, a fifth-layer tool refining cultivator came to greet him. He directly ignored Xiaohua's camouflage clothes and said very respectfully. Xiaohua raised his eyes and looked inside. This crafty workshop was extremely large, and there were also a lot of people inside. All kinds of refining materials were placed in different places. Just like the cultivator in front of him who was welcoming guests, there were at least 10 of them. Yes, they're both refining shops in Weeping Moon City. This workshop is 100 times better than Luanji's shop. Xiaohua muttered to himself. However, when he casually asked about the price of a commonly used refining material, he curled his lips. Although the materials of this workshop were good, the price was more than 30% higher than Luanji's shop. Forget it. Xiaohua lost interest in continuing his act. He clapped his hands and took out the triangular magic tablet. He said in a low voice, I have something to trouble Qiao workshop with. That cultivator's gaze fell on the magic tablet, and he was slightly startled. Then he immediately said respectfully, Senior, please put away the magic tablet. Junior will ask the assistant shopkeeper to come over. After saying that cultivator quickly left. Not long after, a thin early-stage foundation establishment cultivator with a black mole on the left side of his face walked over. He cupped his hands and said, I Xiaoming greet fellow Taoist. He fellow Taoist Xia. Xiaohua saw that Xiaoming didn't ask for his name and didn't answer. He cupped his hands and said with a smile, Fellow Taoist, this way please. Xiaoming raised his hand and led Xiaohua to a corner of the entrance hall. They followed a staircase to the second floor. There were clearly few people on the second floor. There were only a dozen or so foundation establishment cultivators accompanied by female cultivators who were welcoming guests. They lowered their heads and looked at the many magic tools on the table. Chapter 17:10. Hearing that someone was going upstairs, the foundation building cultivators only slightly raised their heads and glanced around. When they saw that it was Xiaohua in a camouflage robe, they frowned and looked down again. Fellow Taoist, please come this way. Xiaoming led Xiaohua to the end of the second floor. He formed hand seals and a small door as tall as a person appeared on the wall. Then he went in first. Xiaohua's figure paused for a moment, then he also went in. Behind the small door was an empty hut with no decorations. Fellow Taoist, please take out your magic card for inspection. Xiaoming slapped his hand and took out a small box from his storage bag. It was emitting a milky white light. Xiaohua handed over the triangular magic card. Xiaoming also looked at it carefully and threw it into the box. As the magic card was thrown in, the color of the box gradually changed. Soon it turned into an orange-red color. Quick! Xiaoming's left hand formed hand seals again and hit the box. With a tung sound, an orange-red beam of light shot out from the box and hit the roof above Xiaoming's head. With a whoosh sound, as Xiaohua's gaze moved up, there was a ripple of light above his head and a small triangular door appeared. Xiaoming nodded and didn't return the magic card to Xiaohua. He pointed with his hand and said with a smile, Yes, fellow Taoist, your magic card is correct. Please go in. Thank you, fellow Taoist. Seeing this, Xiaohua flew into the triangular door above his head. When Xiaohua landed in the pavilion on the third floor, he looked around. This was a slightly dark triangular space. There were no decorations inside this space, just like the small room from before. On the four walls of this space, there were only a few bright flower stones. Fellow Taoist, please. While Xiaohua was still sizing it up, there was a slight distortion in the air in front of him. A flat human figure seemed to be squeezed out from a crack, gradually revealing itself. When the entire figure went from flat to full, it was actually a cultivator wearing a camouflage robe. He couldn't see his specific cultivation. Xiaohua didn't dare to neglect and quickly saluted. Greetings, fellow Taoist. Yes, my surname is Bai. How should I address you, fellow Taoist? The cultivator's tone was very indifferent. My surname is Huang, Xiaohua said with a smile. All right, fellow Taoist Huang. The cultivator calmly said as if it was a routine matter. Since fellow Taoist has a spell card from my workshop, then you must have been introduced by a fellow Taoist from my workshop. Of course, my workshop won't trace your origin. May I ask if fellow Taoist Huang needs any help from my workshop? Xiaohua was still preparing his words, but when he saw the cultivator being so straightforward, he was unexpectedly stunned. Then he suddenly understood. That's right. If the craftsman were so wishy-washy, who would dare to refine a magic tool of unknown origin? After pondering for a moment, Xiaohua took out the 4-phase wheel and the spear-shaped magic tool from the space and handed them over. He said with a smile, I have 2 magic tools. I need Xiao Workshop to change their appearance. The cultivator took the Dharma artifacts and looked at them. Then he scanned them with his strong divine will and carefully observed the 2 Dharma artifacts. This divine sense. I'm afraid if it's not at the early stage of the Golden Core realm, it's at least at the late stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. Xiaohua also tried. The strand of divine will he left on the Dharma artifacts was immediately expelled. This caused Xiaohua to be scared witless and didn't dare to do anything else. The cultivator didn't pay attention to Xiaohua. After a while he whispered, Fellow Taoist Huang, these 2 magic tools, to be honest, the refinement is really not good. Especially this spear-shaped magic tool. Aside from its special material, the formation inside is really clumsy. Wait a moment. Speaking up to here, the cultivator's tone was a bit strange. After carefully observing for a moment, he nodded and said, I made a mistake just now. The material of this magic tool is not only special but also rare. It is a bit similar to the corpse of a demonic beast that I just killed. Unfortunately, it is still a bit lacking. When Xiaohua heard the cultivator's unclear words, he was also at a loss. However, he didn't dare to blindly ask and only listened quietly. Then, the cultivator took out the 4 symbols wheel and said, This magic tool, although it can mobilize the 4 kinds of spiritual qi of heaven and earth, it is a pity that the formation is crude and the magic power it can use is too little. If you want to change it, it would be better to directly refine it. Xiaohua's heart was moved and he whispered, Senior, how many spirit stones do you need to refine these 2 magic tools again? Not much. The cultivator didn't even think and reported a number. Still not much. Xiaohua was secretly shocked. Soon after, he smiled apologetically and said, Junior doesn't have enough spirit stones. I don't know. Is it possible to use spirit grass and other things? Yes, of course. The cultivator casually said, aside from spirit stones, magic tools and magic treasures can all be used as spirit stones. Xiao paused for a moment, then raised the spear-shaped magic tool and said, If fellow Taoist Huang is embarrassed, I can modify this magic tool of yours into a consumable magic tool. Consumable magic tool? Xiaohua was slightly dazed. He had never heard of this kind of magic tool. Hee. The cultivator laughed and placed the 2 magic tools on the ground. He said, This is what my crafty workshop calls it. I hope Senior can dispel my confusion. Fellow Taoist must know that magic tools can be detonated. The cultivator glanced at Xiaohua, seeming to already know Xiaohua's cultivation. He said, Since magic tools can be detonated, why can't you refine some magic tools that only use detonation? Of course. Xiaohua suddenly understood and laughed. Presumably, refining this consumable magic tool doesn't require too many materials and profound formations, right? Precisely so. The cultivator nodded and said, But these materials are rather special. Moreover, they have a strong point. Xiaohua asked curiously. What strong point? Enormous power. The cultivator said somewhat complacently, If there are materials, with fellow Taoist cultivation, if you succeed, you can kill an early-stage Foundation Establishment cultivator. Hiss, Xiaohua sucked in a breath of cold air. He didn't know if he was surprised by the magic tool's power, or the cultivator before him's cultivation. From what Senior said, if Junior's magic tool is made into a consumable magic tool, Senior already has some demonic beast materials? Xiaohua probed. What other materials are needed? How many spirit stones will it cost? We also need the lizard's glue bone. The cultivator said, with this lizard's glue bone, the magic tool made from it has a 70% chance of killing an early-stage foundation establishment cultivator. Otherwise, it can only have a 30% chance. So that's how it is. Xiaohua suddenly understood. Presumably, he wanted to use the lizard's concealment divine ability. Waiting for the cultivator to state the number of spirit stones, Xiaohua inwardly muttered to himself. What does fellow Taoist Huang plan to do? The cultivator saw that a long time had passed and asked somewhat unhappily, the crafty workshop really lives up to its reputation. Xiaohua laughed and waved his hand. The two magic tools were brushed to the side, and he took out the 100-layer cloud seal and MO cloud armor. Oh, the cultivator saw the two magic tools, and was also stunned. Chapter 17:11. Senior, please don't blame me. Xiaohua handed over the two magic treasures, and smiled apologetically. This is Junior's first time coming to the craftsman's workshop, so I couldn't help but have some probing in my heart. Please forgive me. The cultivator stared at Xiaohua for a long time and smiled. I didn't expect fellow Taoist Huang to be so secretive. An aura refining cultivator actually has two magic treasures? Haha. Xiaohua smiled. I won't hide it from Senior, the first two magic treasures are Junior's. These two magic treasures. Haha, fellow Taoist Huang doesn't need to say too much. This old man was just casually asking. The cultivator waved his hand and carefully examined the 100-layer cloud seal and MO cloud armor. After a long time, the cultivator asked, how do you want to deal with these two magic treasures? Do you want to reforge them? Or do you want to change their appearance? Senior, what do you mean? Xiaohua didn't have any thoughts in his heart and asked sincerely. Junior is just following orders. The specifics will depend on Senior. And then this old man won't be polite. The cultivator turned the two magic treasures over and over again and said, defensive magic treasures have always been rare. The reason is that defensive formations are rarely seen. At the same time, it's difficult to refine them into magic treasures. Although fellow Taoists' two magic treasures are somewhat damaged, the defensive formations at the core are intact. It won't be easy to refine them again, but changing their appearance is possible. However, this old man thinks that it would be better to combine these two magic treasures into one, and refine them into a defensive robe. Great! Xiaohua's eyes lit up. He clapped his hands and said, my humble sect. Haha, that's the order. Yes, but although the price of refining two magic treasures together is lower than refining two magic treasures separately, the amount of spirit stones required is also not small. I wonder if fellow Taoist is prepared? The cultivator indifferently asked. Haha, I won't hide it from Senior. I'm afraid the spirit stones in Junior's storage pouch aren't enough. Xiaohua smiled apologetically. Junior does have some old spirit herbs. Oh? Fellow Taoist also wants to trade spirit herbs and magic treasures? The cultivator was a bit surprised. Yeah? What's wrong? Xiaohua was slightly surprised. The cultivator shook his head and said, it's nothing. My workshop has always been accepting spirit stones and magic tools. But recently, some cultivators with powerful backgrounds had spirit stones, but they were all trading with spiritual herbs, magic tools, and even magic treasures. That's why I am a little puzzled. Others don't know. Junior just doesn't have enough spirit stones. Xiaohua laughed. It is indeed a little strange. The cultivator also smiled and said, I only hope that this old man's worries are groundless. Alright, fellow Taoists can't be thinking of using these two magic tools to exchange for the spirit stones, right? That's right. Is that possible? Xiaohua's eyes lit up. Of course it's possible, but it's still not enough. You'll need spirit stones or spirit grass. The cultivator once again stated the amount of spirit stones he needed. Motherfucker, that's a lot. Xiaohua calculated the number of spirit stones he had and said with a smile. This 4-phase will can be used as spirit stones. Junior still wants to ask Senior to change this magic tool into a consumable magic tool. Saying that, Xiaohua took out the lizard's bone and handed it to the cultivator. Of course it's possible. The cultivator carefully looked at it and said, "This old man will add some materials myself. It's not troublesome. These are the remaining spirit stones and a few stalks of spirit grass." Xiaohua was happy in his heart, and took out some spirit stones and 5 stalks of spirit grass that were around 5,000 years old. Hehe, fellow Taoist doesn't need to be so anxious. The cultivator waved his hand and said, "This 4 phase can be left behind. The other things can be handed over to the workshop the next time fellow Taoist comes to pick them up." I wonder when Junior will come next time? Xiaohua waved his sleeve and put away the spirit stones and spirit grass. This consumable magic tool is easy. You can come and pick it up after 20 days. As for these 2 magic tools, I'm afraid I won't be able to do it alone. I'll need other people to do it, and it'll take a year. A year? Xiaohua was stunned. This long? Fellow Taoist Huang doesn't refine magic tools, so you don't know the difficulty of refining magic tools. The cultivator said with a smile. This is a magic tool. If I can refine it in a day, would it still be a magic tool? Hehe, Junior's words have caused Senior to laugh. Xiaohua quickly cupped his hands and said, This is your magic tablet next time." The cultivator waved his hand, and another triangular magic tablet flew in front of Xiaohua. "Next time, you can use this magic tablet to come to my workshop to pick up a refined magic tool. In the future, you can also use it to ask us to help you refine magic tools. Of course, you can also give this magic tablet to a cultivator you think is reliable. Junior understands." Xiaohua took the magic tablet and said with a smile, "Junior will come and pick up the magic tool in 20 days. Good. Fellow Taoist, please." The cultivator raised his hand and cast an incantation seal onto a nearby wall. A small door suddenly appeared, and his body began to distort as he gradually disappeared from the spot. "Thank you, Senior." Xiaohua very respectfully stood up and bowed. Outside the small door was the corridor of the 3rd floor. Xiaohua walked on the corridor, and the small door behind him gradually disappeared. There were no more rooms on the 3rd floor. Alas, this illusion is still not good. If I meet a golden core cultivator, I will be seen through. Fortunately, I can change my appearance, otherwise I really can't hide my whereabouts. Xiaohua's eyes turned and came down from the 3rd floor. The cultivator called Xiaming was waiting at the corner of the 2nd floor. When he saw Xiaohua come down, he cupped his hands and said, "Thank you for coming to my workshop, fellow Taoist. 20 days later, fellow Taoist can come and find me with the magic tablet." Senior White has already said that the rest of the spirit stones can wait for fellow Taoist to come 1 year later. It won't be too late to pay then. Very good. Xiaohua smiled and left the workshop under Xiaming's guidance. 2 of the foundation establishment cultivators on the 2nd floor didn't leave. When they saw Xiaohua suddenly come down from the 3rd floor, they were even more surprised and couldn't help but take a few more glances. Knowing that these cultivators didn't understand the secret of the workshop, Xiaohua sighed. It's really good to have a sect. If I was a loose cultivator, I'm afraid that even if I cracked my head, I still wouldn't know that this workshop can also do the shady business of repairing magic treasures. When he left the workshop, the sky was already dark. Xiaohua identified the direction and was about to leave, but his gaze fell on a small building several tens of feet away. This building was simply piled up with huge stones, but its simplicity didn't appear simple. It even had a hint of great craftsmanship. Xiaohua knew that this was the location of the secret auction in Weeping Moon City. Moreover, this time, it was almost time. Thinking of the anxious expression of the foundation establishment cultivator in the tea house just now, Xiaohua couldn't help but think. Others want to go but can't go. Don't tell me this young master will waste this opportunity? However, this young master's cultivation level is already there. It's not very appropriate to be seen through with a glance, right? Hehe, if you can see through me, then so be it. It's not my true appearance anyway. Xiaohua thought for a moment and said, "Moreover, the pill formula for the clear flower pill still hasn't been found. Even if I return to the Imperial Thunder sect after traveling, I can only obtain a limited number of clear flower pills. The sect can't give the pill formula to me. Forget it, I'll go and try my luck." Maybe I can exchange it for the pill formula. After finishing his calculations, Xiaohua walked towards the building. Perhaps it was still early, but when Xiaohua arrived in front of the building, no other cultivators came with him. After looking around, Xiaohua quickly walked in. The interior of the building was very ordinary, just like an ordinary inn. A few children of the 4th or 5th layer of the aura refining realm were standing inside. When they saw Xiaohua enter, one of them very respectfully welcomed him. He bowed and saluted. "Senior, are you here for a meal or to stay?" This old man came to see if there are any demonic beast cores here. Xiaohua hesitated for a moment, but still said the words in the command talisman. Sure enough, when the disciple heard this, he didn't find it strange. Instead, he smiled and said, "Senior, please follow me." Soon after, the disciple took the lead and led Xiaohua to a small house. The disciple pushed the door open and retreated to the side. "Senior, please." And Xiaohua nodded and entered the small house. The disciple carefully closed the door and slowly walked away. Hearing the disciple's footsteps, Xiaohua looked around and released his divine sense. This small house was different from the small house in the craftsman's workshop. The 4 walls were made of rough boulders. However, there was obviously an extremely powerful restriction on the boulders. Xiaohua's divine sense had just touched it when it was bounced back. Wait here? Xiaohua looked inside the small house. It was empty without any furnishings. The 4 walls were also blank. He couldn't help but be stunned. This disciple didn't say anything? But on second thought, those who could come to this secret auction were all Foundation Establishment and Golden Core seniors. It wasn't their first or second time, so there was naturally no need to remind them. There's still a bit of time. We'll talk about it when the time comes. Xiaohua sat cross-legged and closed his eyes to rest. Sure enough, after the time it took for an incense stick to burn, a light sound came from the stone wall behind Xiaohua. Xiaohua swept with his divine sense, and saw a stone pop out from the wall behind him. When Xiaohua got up to take a look, he saw that the stone was caved in. The caved-in was exactly the same shape as the command talisman. Xiaohua understood. He patted his hand, took out the command talisman, and placed it in the caved-in area of the stone. It fit perfectly, without the slightest difference. With a wung sound, the stone disappeared along with the command talisman. At this time, the 4 walls of the small house where Xiaohua was in suddenly rotated. The restrictions on the 4 walls were completely activated, and a powerful threat was born from the 4 walls. Attack formation. Xiaohua's divine sense swept and his face immediately changed. The power of this activation formation was very strong. It was definitely not something that Xiaohua could deal with his current cultivation. Damn it, Xiaohua was greatly alarmed. He immediately took out the cloud-suppressing seal to protect his body. The 4 walls rotated even faster. It didn't slow down in the slightest because Xiaohua took out his magic treasure. Seeing the stone wall disappear, the ground under his feet also gradually disappeared. Xiaohua felt as if he was standing in the void. This just as Xiaohua was panicking. At the place where the stone disappeared, a gorgeous 3-colored brilliance appeared. Then, a rainbow bridge quickly stretched out, extending to Xiaohua's feet. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.